Okay, everybody, welcome to tonight's Town Council meeting, April 24th, 2017. We will open with the Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of silence.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Item 2 on tonight's agenda is public comment. Public comment, Mr. Bear.
Michael Barnes, please.
Michael Barnes, 17 Sullivan Farm. First, I'd like to say, Frank, I love your tie. Absolutely great. I would like to address the STEEP program on tonight's agenda. I'm very surprised that if we're applying for grants in a year when we had such a bizarre loss of funding for some of the basic services in town, that we're not applying for a grant for funding daycare, which is one of the things that STEEP program is good for social services like the BNA, which is another thing that STEEP program is good for safety items like funding the ambulance that was cut out of the budget. So I'm curious why political programs are going forward and those are not. But that's just a question. The other thing that is very, very curious was the deadline for applying for a STEEP grant is April 17th, 2017, last week. So that means one of two things happened. Or I guess it could be a third for them. We could have gotten a special dispensation from the Office of Policy and Management. Or we're too late to apply for any grant, or the grant's already been applied for, and this is a waste of time in front of this group. Thank you.
Carl Dunham, Candlewood Mountain Road, Milford. I just wanted to comment about a couple of things. With respect to an item that's on your agenda regarding the sale of some of your properties, I had spoken at the Economic Development Commission, and I want to kind of make some of the same points. But my experience in real estate is that you have one advantage now when you own these properties, and that is you have an ability to control what goes on to a great degree. I know what's driving it is to create money, which is fine. But I think whatever is coming out of this ought to be thoughtful, and it should really look to the kinds of things that you want to have. On Still Meadow, that was purchased actually to end a condominium development that's going to be there. I know the piece next to me on the Main Street was purchased for the library. And at certain points, they become excessive. I think Still Meadow, when it was purchased, there was no idea other than to stop that project. But I think while you're looking at marketing, and I think it's a good idea to market it in conjunction with the other piece, Still Meadows, because then you have more opportunity to create some sort of a complex that you want. But I would be looking at some thought process as a governing body of the town to achieve something that you want to achieve. I think if you're going to list the property, obviously you've got to list it subject to not having a responsibility for a commission in the event that the town doesn't want to go forward on it. Because anything that you go to sell is going to have to require town meeting approval. So I would protect yourself that way, but I would be looking at what you want to accomplish. And I know people say, well, we're just going to sell it, but I think it's a perfect opportunity. With respect to the piece next to me, I'm going to be marketing my piece. I've mentioned it. And I want to do something positive with it if I can. And consequently, I would look to have an interest in a piece there such that something could be created that makes a lot of sense. I had spoken to the prior mayor, but at that time, nobody was talking about liquidating it. But I think anything that you do as property owners, you should be really looking to see what you're going to accomplish. And you have that opportunity. I've sold lots of property with control, including the one that we're talking about in the solar. So that's my point, number one. Number two, I was here at meetings where your council voted to give a tax abatement to the solar project, and statements were made that you were going to protect the interests of the town, you're going to protect the interests of the budding property owners. So I would request that you either do one of two things: either get money from the developer to get the kind of studies that you would require of any developer. When the person that went to develop that piece went to do that, I mean, the permits alone were like $350,000, and he paid for consultants along with Broom, which we now use a lot. So I just think that you need to have an allocation of monies for council, for consultants, and for engineers. It's a very sensitive piece of property. And I think, true to your point that you would be protecting us, I think that ought to be done. It's about ready to be filed. The siting council, and I don't think the answer is to wait until everything's filed. It takes time to go over this stuff. I have not received, although I've requested it, information as it goes along so that I know what I've got to deal with. I don't know whether you have, but I just think it's not very prudent to not have that information so that you can deal with it. As I've said before, and I'll say it again, it's going to be a catastrophe. Nobody in their right mind thinks about taking 60 acres, cutting all the trees, stumping it, and thinking it's not going to have any effect. I've looked at them.
Carl, you have a minute, please.
No? Okay, fine. So I made my point, but I do think, in honesty, that it's something that you are almost duty-bound to do now that you empower them by giving them a tax abatement. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you, Carl. Thanks, Carl. Pete Bash, please.
Mayor, Council, Pete Bass, 31 Mount Tom Road. Reason why I'm standing up here tonight is Friday is Arborist Day. And one of the things that's always amazing about our town is we have lots of people, lots of different work histories, lots of volunteerism. I spoke with a Brian Skog, who is an arborist here in town. And one of the things that he had mentioned I thought was a great idea, and I told him after I spoke with him I'd come to council, is, as we all know, we have a tree issue with the devastation of these insects coming in and knocking down all these trees. So wouldn't it be nice if during every Arbor Day, the town of New Milford planted one tree on one of the many properties that we have, and we talk about just using that as kind of our commitment towards replenishing our trees. I'm going to ask for this to be added to the agenda. If I get a second, great. If I don't, I don't. But I think it'd just be a wonderful way for us to show that we're all about renewables and looking at a precious resources, which is trees. Maybe add $100 for a new tree, or get one of the many businesses I'm sure would donate. And I just think it'd be a wonderful opportunity for the town to show that. Thank you.
Thank you, Pete. Jeff Winter, please.
Hi, Jeff Winter, 22 Morey Road. Just wanted to point out real quick that steep grant funds are issued by the State Bond Commission. I'm reading this directly from their website, and can only be used for capital projects. Capital project, it's considered to be a capital project if it's new construction, expansion, or renovation, or replacement of an existing facility or facilities. Now, granted, that can include social service-related projects, including daycare centers, elderly centers, emergency shelters, multi-purpose human resource centers, food distribution facilities, etc. However, they cannot be used to fund day-to-day activities that has been purported here this evening. It's very easy to look it up. It's right on the OPM website. So I would grant that what you've heard here tonight is not completely true with how the grants are released. And then second of all, that even if we have missed the deadline for this year, there's no reason why any grant cannot be applied for next fiscal year. Thank you.
That's it, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Moving on to item 3. There's comments. We've got a number of items tonight. I'll try to keep it short. I did want to recognize, though, over the past weekend, the community came out and gave recognition to a funeral service for Biddy Roger. This past weekend at St. John's, there was a really nice funeral service for her. She was one of the founding mothers of Loaves and Fishes. She was a great leader of the community and very inspiring when you read through her life and some of the things that she did, from bringing in exchange students from around the world to her work at Loaves and Fishes and just being so active in the church and her love for this community was really inspiring. I would encourage anybody who's interested to read her obituary. We mourn her passing, and we certainly recognize the work that she did. Hopefully, at the end of this meeting tonight, the referendum will be scheduled for May 16th, so I would encourage everybody to go out and vote on the budgets. The town meeting will be for May 9th. That being said, let's move on to item 4, approval of prior minutes.
Motion to approve the regular town council meeting minutes of 3/27/2017.
Second.
Any further discussion? No. Let's see, let's get one second. Walter was the loudest, I think. So, without any further discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstention? All right, motion carries. Thank you. Item 5, request for donation. We'll entertain a motion, then invite Mr. Attorney Tower up.
Motion to accept a donation of 10 bicycle safety signs from Kramer and Anderson that say 3 feet, it's the law. This donation is being made in the memory of partner David P. Burke, who passed away on 3/15/2016 as a result of a bicycling accident alongside Bantam Lake.
I'll second that.
Attorney Tower.
Thank you, Your Honor. I'll be real quick. I've practiced at Kramer Anderson for 23 years now, and for about 22 of those years I practiced with David Burke, who was in our New Milford office for about 10 years before moving to our Danbury office. And last year around this time, David died in a tragic bicycling accident up in Bantam, and it did not have to do with any motor vehicle. Rather, he had an encounter with a pothole that destabilized him, and he ended up dying from his injuries. But our firm made a decision to donate these types of bicycle safety signs, and I think Randy's here as well, but we have 10 of them that we want to donate to the town, and we're also donating these to 3 other area towns, including Reading, where David lived, Danbury, where he practiced, and Litchfield, where he died. And we'd like to basically have the town accept these, and I will say this is a sign that reflects a statute that a lot of people don't know about. It was passed in 2008 and provides that all of us as drivers should try to provide 3 feet of space between us and an adjoining bicycle. Thank you, Your Honor.
No, thank you, John, and thank you, Randy. Thank you, Kramer and Anderson. Obviously, you see, there's a big push to encourage bicycling throughout town and the region, and it's really tragic what happened to David. I'm very sorry to hear about that, but I was just driving through Brookfield today, and I actually saw these signs, and they're a lot smaller. So the size of these signs, I think, will actually help bring awareness to it. And we want to encourage bicycling, but we also want to encourage safety and make sure people are doing it safely. So thank you for that. And
So,
I don't see any issue with accepting it.
if it's approved, we'll be giving it to Dan Stan.
All right, and Dan's been a great advocate for bicycling through town as well. I have to thank him for the work that he's been doing. Any further questions or comments? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. And with that, we've got, and the next item agenda is legal, and this is I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to approve a supplementary appropriation in the amount of $75,000 to come from contingency to be placed in legal other expenses. 1041390053101.
Second.
Okay, thank you, Randy and John, for coming up here. Just to give a little background, there has been a significant amount of legal work this year, from litigation matters to contract matters, and we've got to replenish that budget. The biggest one being standard has been a big draw on us, but the way I look at it, that's an investment. We're litigating that case so that we could hopefully receive that money back. But I don't want to steal your thunder. Randy and John, please take it away.
Oh, not a lot of thunder, Mayor, but just wanted to brief you on the reason for this. Those of you who know me, most of you know me for the last 14 years here, is that we husband very well our legal budget. What happened here is a situation that arose out of the demolition of Century Brass. Nobody's fault, except what we believe would be the former contractor. That litigation is a highly technical undertaking. The reason for it is because it's not only legal driven, but it's expert driven. So the fact is that the budget that is necessary in order to get through this phase of what we're doing is significant. We're in the discovery phase now. I don't want to get into detail unless it's going to be an executive session because it's determining pending litigation. So the request is for $75,000 for this fiscal year. And in addition to the standard matter, by the way, there was a lot of closure work that had to be done for Century Brass in order to get it ready for demo. So the fact is that the litigation is complex, it is detailed, and it is discovery driven and expert driven. And with that, that's the leading purpose of the necessity for the supplemental appropriation, along with the closure work that had to be done to get it ready. So that's what we're here for. We happy to entertain any questions.
Could we go into executive session to discuss this for a couple minutes?
Can we go into executive session without it being noticed?
Yeah, you can if you do two-thirds.
Two-thirds, all those present.
Okay. Is there anything else that people were to discuss outside of executive session? Okay, so there's a motion to go into executive session. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Any discussion on it? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Three opposed.
Who's opposed?
We got, raise your hands if you're opposed, like Frank, Mr. Bear, Mr. Chamberlain, and Ms. Lundgren. So the motion fails. Mr. Szymanski.
So how much has been spent on the closure work to date?
Oh, the closure work and the litigation?
Nope, just closure work.
The closure work, I don't know.
I believe it's in the vicinity of around 15,000.
Okay.
And that was work that was done in connection with, you might remember the Panda power plant, but the closure work was something that we view as would be necessary to convey any portion of that property in the future.
Okay, so that was associated
All or any
with
portion.
making it ready for conveyance.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and again, even if it's partitioned or the entirety, that closure work is a prerequisite to doing that.
If we held onto the property, would we need to do that?
Well, because, as I understood it, a portion is considered for private acquisition, but if we held on to the entirety, the ownership would never change, and so you wouldn't necessarily need to go through the RCRA closure process. But I would say that the town, even if it retains ownership for a long period of time, I would think you'd want to clean property for saleability.
There's no way I would not recommend doing the closure work, irrespective of whether we owned it or we're going to sell it, because we want the property to be in a position, the best possible position. Strictly necessary, no, but recommended, yeah.
Now, when we initially wanted to go into litigation with Standard, I had expressed a concern relative to the costs associated with the litigation. How much have we spent to date?
To date on Standard itself, this fiscal year, 110,000.
No. Total.
Both. I think it's in the vicinity of 135.
135,000.
And that includes
Both fiscal years.
And the 75,000 is going to cover which portion of the litigation? Just the discovery aspect with our experts, not the trial?
No, it's not through trial.
What do we anticipate that would be?
It's hard to anticipate that.
we don't have a trial date yet, and that's going to be driven by the progress of the discovery.
And we're going after them for how much money?
Our damage estimate is 1.5 million. Okay. And they have a counterclaim asserted against the town.
And I noticed there's still a lot of, maybe you guys can't answer it, but there's still a lot of steel out there. Do we know when that's getting removed?
It's right on the possible of an EPA approval for removal for recycling.
Okay. There's no extra budget requirements for that working.
I believe that would be actually, if the EPA approves its removal, which is a consequence of testing just recently done, it would result in a credit to the town that may enable them to be doing further work towards a clean site.
Sure.
So then they could put that towards the slab work maybe that we were going to get back from standard, which we don't have yet.
Two things. It might be put forward some sub-slab dirty dirt that's been encountered underneath the slab, or alternatively chasing what are called the drain lines. Drain lines are sub-slab that are within the footprint of that property, and they are possibly leaked and may need to be excavated and chased within the footprint of that to make it clean.
So the slab removal did not include the foundation wall removal then, because I noticed that's still there?
Yeah, it's my understanding that the slab removal is not inclusive of the footings, and I think I don't know if it's going to get cut down to grade.
Yeah, that was my question.
I was curious about the same thing. I believe it may not be cut down to grade. It may be sitting there in its current confine without further funding.
Actually, we don't know that.
I don't know that.
We don't know that it's going to.
That's why I believe, but I could be wrong.
So if you could get us clarity, you could just write an email to the mayor that could circulate to us.
Oh,
You know what
Or
I'll
is
do
there
next
someone else
time?
that could answer?
We haven't had an update in a while, and we did find a time capsule. We went through the Century Brass property. So maybe at the May meeting, I could bring TRC in here and Mike and anybody else associated with it to give an update on it, and maybe it'll be a good opportunity to open up the time capsule too, see what's in there. So I'll schedule that for, I think it'll be the May meeting. All right.
So we don't know then what, like, say it goes to trial, right? And based on the level of complicated nature, the technical nature of the matter, if we had to venture a guess at the trial.
You
same
know
as-
me. I can't venture that, guys. Because of the necessity of experts and things of that nature.
Yeah.
We don't
Would
know.
it be fair to say it's the amount we've spent so far?
I don't know about that. It could be. It could be depending on you.
Okay.
Sure.
Thank you.
You know what they say to all of your witnesses, don't speculate, right, Randy?
That's exactly right.
You gotta take a guess if you don't know. But we're definitely, we're aggressively pursuing it. John is very much on top of it. We have difficult adversaries, but we wouldn't have brought the case if we weren't all on board and thought that we were, in the right for it. So look forward to that. Mr. Bass.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, John and Randy. From someone that's not an attorney, does this company have the ability to countersue?
Oh, yes. Yeah.
And they have.
They have.
And they have.
They have.
And how much have they countersued for?
Same thing.
Same amount.
Essentially the same amount.
They claim a lost profit, and then other kinds of damages that they say they would be entitled to if they had been able to perform the whole job, and I think it's in the vicinity of 1.5.
I know a lot of times when you come before us as the town attorney, you specify a lot of times either the judge or the jury in control usually go half and half. They cut the baby in half, so to speak. Is that something that would be deemable in a case like this?
I think you know what you're referring to? I think you're referring to like the tax appeals, things of that nature. And many times trial courts do that in a tax appeal. This is not that type of a case. This is a different type of a case. It's a high stakes litigation case. And we have a judge that is assigned to this case through conclusion. So it's serious. It's being taken seriously by a judicial branch. So it's not something that you could really put a formula to, if you will.
So it's not like the judge could say, both you parties go figure it out and come back.
Well, not this one. Okay. Not this one. This one is go beat each other up and then see what happens with the jury.
Gotcha.
Good question.
Sure.
Randy, is this on the complex litigation docket?
No, it is not. We kept it in Litchfield.
On purpose. Sorry,
You know
I
what I'm
can steal
saying.
your
No, but he knows what I'm talking about.
Yes.
For a reason.
Thank you.
Fair enough. All right. Any more discussion? All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank
Nice
you,
seeing you all.
gentlemen. Thank you, everybody.
Yeah, same here.
Okay. Let's see. Item 7. This is actually a revision. Let me note that I just found out today that the amount that's being requested is actually $3,500 for the entire memorial. So with that revision, you can make the motion based on that.
Motion to approve a supplemental appropriation in the amount of $3,500 for a Vietnam War memorial to be installed on the town green. The funds are to come from contingency or another account as deemed appropriate by the Director of Finance and should be transferred to the Mayor's account number 1041090058901.
Second.
Just to give a little background, Ray Crawford had anticipated being here tonight and doing a presentation. A lot of you know Ray as a Vietnam veteran and an amazing contributor to the town. He's contributed to a lot of the plaques that appear around town at the base of the Lincoln bust at the top of the green at the police station. Very much involved with Candlewood Lake. So Ray and I got involved in this after the Wall That Heals came to New Milford, and it was such a great event. It was amazing to show this recognition for our Vietnam veterans. And then the conversation logically turned to, well, we don't have a memorial here in New Milford for our Vietnam veterans, and that was enough for Ray to hit the ground running, and he started developing plans and schematics, and we kind of kicked it around. We created an ad hoc committee of Kathy Schmelly, Jeff McBriarty, Jim Delancey, Sherry Voigt from Congresswoman Estes' office has been involved. And you'll see in your packet, the final version of what we came up with. And I wish Ray could be here to discuss it. I don't do it justice. He's put a lot of thought and effort into this. You could see from the plaque, the Vietnam War, 1959, 1975. Ray is, explained to me and educated, that this actually started in 1959 when the first American serviceman was killed and special forces were dispatched to Vietnam, to 1975 when Saigon was captured and the Vietnam War officially ended. You see it's a tribute to the men and women of the United States Army, Navy, Marine Corps, Air Force, and Coast Guard, which I have to thank Kathy for bringing that up, that the Coast Guard was actually dispatched to Vietnam as well. A lot of people don't realize that, who bravely fought in Vietnam and Southeast Asia to defend freedom. One of the more interesting aspects of this memorial is another one. This was Ray's idea, was to provide the map of Vietnam. And it really provides, the map itself tells a story. You've got the designation. You see how close North Vietnam is with the border of China. You've got the DMZ kind of line over there. And then that's the demarcation with South Vietnam. And what we would have liked to have done, but we just didn't have the technical ability to do so, was to show the Ho Chi Minh Trail and how it actually went into Laos and Cambodia, and which that was actually used by the North Vietnamese to attack American forces. But I think the map alone, will kind of educate people to show the relationship to the region. You see Vietnam and Southeast Asia at the top. Vietnam technically it's separated. That's the way the country is set forth. And then in honor of our POWs and MIAs, we will never forget our POW MIAs. So you got the sense. Ray was nice enough to kind of do a mock-up on the back of the All Wars Memorial. Originally, we thought about putting it at the base of the memorial and having it kind of like a sloped black granite. Would have required a base. This is a really elegant solution that Ray and the committee came up with. The back of that All Wars Memorial is not used. It's a blank canvas, and putting it kind of at eye level takes away the need for this kind of three-dimensional memorial slab. So it logistically, it's a lot easier, and we're just really excited about it. And I think for the money that that this is going to cost, Ray is in charge of us for his time. $3,500 is a great investment. It's something that hopefully will be here for centuries to come. So with that, that's the background. Hoping that the community, the VFW, will be raising money for this as well, but I did want to extend that the town would at least front the money so that we could start ordering materials and ordering these plaques, and then engage the community in a fundraising campaign through the VFW. So with that, any other questions or discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much. We'll let you know of updates, and hopefully we'll have a dedication fairly soon. Item 8, appointments to boards and commissions.
Motion to approve the following appointments to boards and commissions. Ethics Commissions, David R. Schaffer, Democrat, alternate, for a term of 4/24/2017 to 11/30/2019. Board of Assessment Appeals, Jeffrey S. Winter, Democrat, for 4/24/2017 to 11/30/2019. Historic Properties Commission, Ron J. Sharisa, Green Party, 4/17/2017 to 11/30/2017.
Yeah.
Is David Schaffer filling a vacancy? The sentence wasn't finished, I didn't know that.
It says filling vacancy on the Ethics Commission, so yes, he would be.
So, but not a specific person, just wasn't standing.
Yeah, there's a number of vacancies on there, so he's just filling that in. Any further discussions? I see a number of our candidates here today, Mr. Suresha and Jeffrey Winter. So many of you know them in the community, and I think they're going to do a great job and as well as David Schaffer. So without further ado, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. Thank you, gentlemen, for being willing to serve. Item 9. Do you want to read everybody, or do you just want to do it by category?
I'll do it by category.
Okay.
Motion to approve the reappointments to boards and commissions. Candlewood Lake Authority, Joseph P. Wardowski, for 4/17/2017 to 11/30/2019.
Second.
And for the Library Modernization Committee, Katie Francis, Republican, Michael Gold, Republican, Joyce Hermanot, Democrat, Jennifer Klinger LaCava, unaffiliated, Jack G. Oxton, Republican, Joanne Chapin, Republican, David O. Elmore, unaffiliated, Paul G. Partolo, Democrat, Jennifer LaPerry, Republican, for the term 5/1/2017 to 11/1/2017.
Second.
And then you want to just do
And
the
then-
roads
and then
commission. We might
roads
as well do it all at once.
commissions,
We've got this far.
John Whitman, unaffiliated, Christopher Eaton, Democrat, Robert Barone, unaffiliated, John Oakes, Democrat, Geraldine Lukowitz, Democrat, all for the term 4/11/2017 to 10/11/2017.
Second. Okay. Any further discussion? Mr. Smansky.
Are there still 2 vacancies on the roads commission?
I believe there are.
Okay. Can we put out some kind of thing to look for people? I know at the last meeting in the minutes, they said they were looking for people.
We have, we've certainly put it out there. We're going to do a new press release to advertise the number of vacancies that are still available on these boards and commissions. And if you have any suggestions, please send them to the office. They're doing good work. I appreciate it. Modernization Committee, great job. They've gotten this far into it, making real progress there. So hopefully by November we'll see, I think phase 2 or phase 3 that we're in now, Michael. I don't know which one. Phase 2, right? Right. Okay. So, and Mr. Wodarski, very active time on the Candlewood Lake Authority, so we do appreciate that. And there's a lot of work to be done as well. So I appreciate your willingness to continue to serve. Any further discussion? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, everybody. And again, thank you, everybody, for serving. Item 10, Town Planner. We've got, I guess, for an update, Kathy, why don't you come up? So we've got the Surplus Committee has been busy at work. Mr. Bass, Mr. Chamberlain, Mr. Largo, and Mr. Esposito. So Kathy, why don't you give an update on some of these kind of issues in item I, and then we could entertain a motion.
As everyone probably remembers, back when the Surplus Properties Committee was established, it was before some of the discussion was done about the budget and selling properties to offset that revenue loss. But we had just focused it as properties in general. Which ones should the town keep? Which ones should we maybe not keep? I went through the whole list of over 130 properties. There were a lot of properties we do definitely have to keep. They have stormwater drainage facilities on them. They're schools, municipal buildings. But there are a few that we definitely felt should be marketed. And the biggest one of these was the what everyone calls the Still Meadow property. And we actually have the agents here from OR&L Commercial. I don't know if you want them to present anything this evening.
Yeah,
or,
sure. I mean, the issue on the agenda is to sign a listing agreement with them. So it'd be great to hear from them.
Are we going to discuss the rest of these?
Did we want to just?
FYI.
do we want to start with one property at a time, or how did you want to?
I'm asking what you plan to do.
Let's do one property at a time, and then we can get to the rest of them. And that makes sense.
The first one on the agenda was the Still Meadow property.
Okay. Why don't we entertain a motion? That way we can have discussion and it'll be part of the record.
All right, motion to authorize the mayor to sign a listing agreement with OR&L Commercial for the Still Meadow property, William Ravis for the residential property at 82 Perry Drive, and to issue an RFP for 25 Church Street.
Second that.
Okay. So as far as discussion, we've got some representatives from OR&L. I'd like to invite them up.
And I did pass around the most recent, the listing and marketing analysis.
Excellent. Thank you, gentlemen.
Mr. Mayor,
Thank you for
Council.
being here.
You did?
I'm Toby Brimberg. I'm Vice President of OR&L Commercial Realtors. Phil Marshall, Phil and I work together. We have another associate, Frank Hurd, who would be involved with us in the marketing of this property. Many of you may not know OR&L, but very briefly, we are an organization that has three groups. The O is a management company. It's Bob Owens who runs it. Our management company has about 1,200 employees, and we manage municipal buildings throughout the state, all the rest stops in the state, and it's a fairly large organization. Both management and custodial. The R is Todd Brenz, who runs our construction company, and we in some situations actually do a development from the ground up. I have given a couple of pamphlets that show some of the medical buildings that we've been building recently. Over the last 5 years, we've built about 10 medical buildings. And I and a small group of guys, and women, we're 15 of us. We work out of 2 offices, one in Rocky Hill and one in Brantford. Brantford's our corporate office. We do business throughout the region, all of the state, including Massachusetts, Rhode Island, and we are strictly commercial. We have 25 years of history of marketing commercial properties in the office, industrial, and retail sector. This particular property does fall into those disciplines. We are actively marketing the other Still Meadow piece, which is to the west of this property. That's 21 acres, and we were contacted by the town with the idea that possibly marketing the 2 properties together would make some significant impact on what we present to the marketplace. As far as the uses, quite frankly, when we go out to market a property, we are driven by and controlled by the zone regulations. And anything that is going to happen, and the people that we approach are going to have to come through the entire process, make presentations to you, and in the end, it'll be a project that the town is going to want. So all the work we do is driven by the allowable zone, which is the B1, B2 zone at this time. Other than that, if you have some questions, yes.
I actually have a question for you.
Sure.
We're discussing now with someone who gave us an estimate to do this. Do I assume that we're not entertaining any other companies talking to us about this?
About what?
Real estate companies.
Listing?
Have we made a decision to go with these
Hold on for a
people?
second. No, there is no decision. We've reached out. This is the only company that's actually interested in listing this
May I ask
property.
how we reached out?
Kathy?
I contacted our committee, we discussed that
phone
we should
people?
contact 3. I contacted 2 other.
May I ask who?
Chef Breyer from Breyer Associates and George.
Was Tower one or Goodfellow Ashmore? Or
I didn't
local
reach out to
people?
them, no.
Okay, well, those are 2 local commercial people. That's why I'm just asking, that we're approaching this by talking to these representatives first, so that tells me that this decision's been made. We're not gonna go any further to find anybody else to market this?
But you asked about why
That's
we're,
not-
we're
that's-
recommending
Well,
them.
I have some questions to ask them, but you are the person I'm asking first.
Hold on for a
Because this
second.
is presented as if it's a foregone conclusion.
No, there's a subcommittee. So what was the subcommittee's recommendation with regard to this,
The
Kathy?
subcommittee was Pete, Tom, Frank,
I know
Scott.
who's on it.
Yeah, and we talked about, we thought this company would be a good one to reach out to, so we did reach out to them.
Good.
The other two companies that I reached out to were not interested.
Okay, yes, I saw your note
Yeah.
about that. I have nothing against this company.
Yeah.
Let me ask you, Kathy. So what was the thinking behind from the subcommittee?
Can I finish my question?
Well, I'm
I
answering it.
asked a question. No, I asked you a question and you answered it.
No,
And I have
I'm
a
asking
question.
Kathy to
Okay.
answer it.
Well, here's a question I have. I know who this company is. I know you have that other piece of property for some time now, and you say you're actively marketing it. I could not find it on any of your multiple websites, and that includes your construction, your manufacturing, your oversight, your operational, everybody, your Florida company. So I can't gauge too much about how you've done with that, except to say I don't see it anywhere and it's still for sale.
Well, I'm surprised that you haven't, I'd have to go through the website with you. It's up on our site, CoStar, LoopNet, and Circ. We do not use
You don't use your own.
MLS.
I didn't look on MLS, I looked you up. I know who you are, I used to live in
It's-
Branford, I
it's-
know you exist, I know what you do, I'm
it's-
not anything against you, but I was just surprised I didn't see it. So it makes me curious how you'd market something that you would attach to that is what is of concern
Okay,
to us.
I would probably want to sit down with you and go through our site because it's there.
If I were looking to buy a piece of property, I wouldn't be calling you and asking you to walk me through it. I would expect to see it when I search for properties available in New Milford,
Right.
Connecticut. And that's what I searched for on all of your sites, to include the one in Florida.
I know that it's actively, I
Well,
don't
and
mean
I
to
guess
argue
I
with
just
you.
don't know how to use the internet then, perhaps. But that's my question for you. You already answered my question. We had a subcommittee. I know who was on the subcommittee. I still think that due diligence is not making 2 phone calls, and that's in respect to Kathy. I appreciate and respect her knowledge on things. But we're talking about something that's worth a lot of money to us, and we get one opportunity. We've already talked with someone stood up here, a member of our community, and said, we have an opportunity to think about this and not rush into it, as sometimes, Mayor, you are wont to do.
I'm going to take
I know
issue
we
with that,
need
Ms.
the money.
Francis.
I know we need the money.
Ms. Francis.
My point is, please, let me finish. My point is,
Ms. Francis.
to do due diligence on something worth a couple of $1 million, I think a phone call to more than just 2, and somebody local would have been nice.
Ms. Francis, I don't know why you're taking such an adversarial tone. And
Because
I take
walked
issue.
into this ready to go. You've already made this.
I gave you the courtesy. Let me respond to your assertion now.
Okay.
A, I don't understand the adversarial tone.
That's not what we're talking
We
about.
talk about, you said
My
that,
tone.
you accused me of rushing into this. So I've taken that to, and you've said that in the past, so I've taken that to heart. So I created a subcommittee, a bipartisan subcommittee, to review this with our, excuse me, with our town planner as a professional aide. And they've done so, and they've taken their time. And this is something that they've been reviewing for weeks, if not months, since they've been created. And they've come to this conclusion, and it's a rational conclusion based on the ability to optimize the sale of this property. Now, from what I understand from the local realtors that it was reached out to, it wouldn't make much sense to have 2 separate people marketing 2 separate pieces of this property when, as a whole, the property could be marketed more successfully. So that's the idea, and the recommendation was for some of the local realtors to go with ORNL, and they're a reputable company, and they certainly have an incentive and an interest in not only marketing, but presenting a project that the town can support and get behind. And I don't see any problem with the way the process has been handled.
I'm sure you don't, but I would think that if you had a subcommittee, which I appreciate that we did,
Right.
but wouldn't it be normal step next for this council to talk to the subcommittee? Because right now, the only way I can ask them questions is to make it sound as if I have a problem with them. And they are a perfectly reputable company, and I appreciate that you're here.
Sure.
The only question I had was why I couldn't find the other property.
Sure.
But I say to you, why do we have these subcommittees for things? You're nice enough to do this. why can't we discuss it with them?
Well,
Now
we
we're
should, this is the
sitting here-
subcommittee's recommendation, so they're
Most
here.
of them are here.
Oh,
Please.
really? I wasn't under the impression that it was the true subcommittee's recommendation.
The
but-
true, it's the shadow
Okay.
subcommittee, I suppose.
No, the
Mr.
only
Wargo,
one we have.
let's get somebody from the subcommittee to chime in on this.
Pete Bass?
And I understand.
Pete Bass? Were you a member?
I'm a member, yes.
Were you happy that the only two people were called and that we ended up with this company?
I would like to have seen more.
Thank you.
One of the concerns that we did have was a couple of the realtors that Kathy did talk to didn't want to really bid on the job because the other parcel was encumbered
They didn't want to put.
under the umbrella of these gentlemen here.
Mr. Wargo.
But
This company already has the listing for the front piece.
I know that.
To market the piece that we have with another company doesn't make sense. By marketing the piece with one company, it's easier to market. I think it would be confusing if you had two real estate agents going in different directions, but the final thing, the best for Milford is that we sell that piece contiguous. I think we get the best plan of development if we do that.
So
And
say
then-
you. Okay. I don't have anything against this company.
Well,
You're
that's why we did.
interpreting my comments to be against them. My comments are, I would have liked to have discussed with our subcommittee what other thoughts people had, not just about this agency, but about what kind of plan of action is there. You say it doesn't make sense in your idea to do it separately. Maybe that's true, but I would have liked to have heard what some other comments were made. And I also would like to know is how long have you been representing that other piece of property?
For over about a year and a half, we recently lowered the price.
Yes,
We
that's
had
right.
it priced too high.
Okay,
And-
I'm not against you nor putting the two things together, but there's more than one way to do things. And I just feel having this put in front of us as it's like it's already set.
One may say,
And that's not their fault, but they're here, which is why I'm saying.
I'm going by the
this
recommendation of
this
the
without them.
subcommittee makes a recommendation. That's why I appointed them. The recommendation was to issue this listing, the William Ravis for the residential property, and to issue an RFP for 25 Church Street. I mean, we could also kill it with a death by a 1,000 cuts. That's the opposite extreme. But
I
if you
don't
want to
wanna
move
kill
forward,
it.
excuse me, if you want to move forward and actually achieve something with these committees, you actually, at some point you have to act. Mr. Chamberlain.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was a member of the committee, attended every meeting. I think I was the only person who did in fact attend every meeting. And I have to say that although on many occasions I have found myself crossing the aisle to agree with my colleague, Ms. Francis, I have to take my differences with you tonight. I think it's an eminently smart decision to go with this particular agency. The reasons are that they do projects like this. They have the contiguous property. Our property increases the value of their property. Their property increases the value of our property. The one thing that has not been mentioned heretofore is that even though the other involved property has been on the market for some period of time, apparently they now have a motivated seller, and that there has been a recent reduction in price on the property, and that in combination with the motivated seller and the enhanced value of the two being marketed as one unit, which certainly they...
And may I add something really important? The fact that we have very limited access. Yes, we have access on Route 7. However, it's very limited, and it has encumbered. One of the reasons that nothing has happened, there have been many projects that have come forward even before we had this listing that have been turned away because of the limited access. By incorporating this into putting the two parcels together, it gives our other parcel access on 3 different sides. Right now, you only have one way in and one way out.
I reviewed your plan, and as I said, it isn't you, but thank you, Scott. I appreciate that. Because that's what I thought we might have first, was the people on the subcommittee that there was, instead of the people that have an interest in it.
And the one thing I did want to stress was that we did work as a group, that ultimately there's no one ultimate answer, but at some point there has to be the answer. And given the circumstances, I would say the trump card was that we have the contiguous property, and it makes sense that the properties really need to be handled together. Not that there's anything wrong with other agencies, but A, nobody showed any particular interest in doing it, and B, I think that their background, their experience, and their marketing of the contiguous property speak well for allowing them the first opportunity. I mean, this isn't necessarily forever, but it's the first opportunity.
Well, thank you. That's 2 out of the 3 people. I appreciate that.
Fair enough.
That's what I wanted to hear first.
Although it's the first opportunity, it's a 1-year listing agreement. When does your listing agreement expire with the front property?
We just renewed it for a year.
So
it's probably within a month or so.
You just stated our property only has one access to a road?
No, ours. I'm sorry, the other piece, not yours.
So I guess I received, as part of the subcommittee, they forwarded me your presentation, your initial presentation before it was revised, which I haven't had a chance to review. So I have several questions, because you're presenting to us saying, hey, based on this packet we gave you, you should hire us, right? We're standing behind this as a company. You got all these employees and whatnot, and I respect that. So I guess my first question is from a valuation perspective, right? The front property is 1.75, I think you said. And it's going to be lowered, or that's the lowered price?
No, that is the new lowered asking price. Now, mind you, there's only about 10 acres usable there.
In your
21.
In what you had told us, you had said there were 11 plus.
No, on your parcel. On the parcel in front.
Yeah.
There's only about 10 or 11 acres usable.
Okay. Our property has less usable acreage.
No, your property, I was told, has 12 to 13.
Who told you that?
That was the information
I said it has less than, I
Maybe
said
you could use
less than
this.
13.
So if you look at the existing condition mapping that's been done on the property that you can pull up, because there's been previous proposals done, and if you take about 20 minutes to look at the steep slopes greater than 25%, to look at the floodplain, to look at the wetlands, and to say what's a realistic area that we can develop outside of the wetlands, right? New Milford has a 100-foot upland review area. So I said maybe 50 feet is fair. I think that's aggressive, but I used 50 feet. When you do that, there's only 9.25 acres usable.
Okay, I can tell you that I'm not an engineer.
Okay.
I'm going with information that was supplied to me by your planning department, which was supplied to them by an engineering firm that had done a study, and I believe they came in at 12 or 13 acres. That's what I was told.
It was our firm that did the study.
But I don't think you didn't mention.
I never gave you an acreage. I calculated that today.
Okay, I was giving
we were just, I think it was just a ballpark.
Okay, so if it's 9.25 acres that's usable, which is what's really usable.
Point of order at this point?
Mr. Chamberlain.
I have before.
That's why. Your Honor,
I'm asking questions.
I'm asking that Mr. Zemansky be removed from this discussion based on his conflict of interest. Mr. Zemansky has done work on this property. I'm assuming that he was paid for the work that he did on the property, and I've never had a situation where I've sat on a matter before the council where somebody who was involved in a transaction, it doesn't matter whether it's $5 or $5 million.
You didn't hear what I said, Scott. So Mr. Fulinello, who was the economic development director, was trying to stimulate economic activity on the property. So he asked me to look at what could be done at the property. So I felt bad for him because he had limited funds. So I did a $5,000 feasibility study for $500 for the town of New Milford, or $300.
I'm asking you recuse yourself
Absolutely
from any
not.
discussion of this
Absolutely
property.
not, and I'm going to continue with my question.
Well, look for a second. So there's a point of order. It's been raised that, I guess what you're referring to is a possible ethical violation where, Mr. Szymanski, let's just address this. If you received remuneration, you received money with regard to this property in the past, regardless of what reason, does it implicate your ability to be fair in this situation as we discuss it going forward?
Mr.
My
Mayor,
client was
may I
to be clear.
make a point? And that point is that the conflict of interest is not just that he received money, and he did certainly receive money. He could have donated it to the Economic Development Commission. People donate things to the town all the time. He didn't donate it, he charged for it. But the thing that concerns me most is that we have a situation now where he's involved in the debate, and he is using his superior knowledge, his inside knowledge, the knowledge acquired during the work for pay on that piece of property to basically forward an agenda.
Let's get to the point. So whether it's 9 acres, 10 acres, 11 acres, 12 acres, I know Mr. Szymanski, there's another piece of property over here that has steep slopes that you're involved in, and you know, you're able to work around that. We're not debating that issue right now. We're debating listing this.
May
which,
I
yes, sir,
interject
please.
too, please. There's no question that the value that we assessed and came up with for this property has to do with the usable acreage. If in fact the usable acreage is less than what we thought it was, it will impact the price at which we listed at. Tonight was just, I believe, just a presentation of who we are. Nothing is cast in stone. We've given a proposal to you to give you an idea of the marketing that we can do. We gave you an opinion of value based on information we were given about the site. That can change.
Sure.
If in fact it's going to be less usable acreage and it's more encumbered for I saw a subdivision map that in fact made it look like there was much more usable than what I see here. That's fine, that can be adjusted. So we're open to conversations about that. We didn't come here tonight to get the mayor to sign a listing. We came here just to have you understand
That's how it's
who
worded,
we
though,
are.
just so you understand. Our agenda is worded for you to get the listing tonight.
Well, I appreciate it.
And I think that's fair. So, Mr. Bass.
Thank you, Mayor. Couple of things. Are we still on the parliamentarians? Or are we moving?
I think we're moving on from that.
Moving
The point has been made. Let's move on. Fair enough.
Yeah, because I'd just like to say quickly,
Sure.
Mayor, it's volunteers that help out. You know, and we may have differences of opinions, but I would highly want somebody on the council that has experience, because I know I don't have any. Just like I would want people with legal experience who was on this board that could help us with legal matters that are way above my opinion.
I think it's irrelevant, though. I mean, the point is made, but we're talking macro as opposed to getting into the micro
And what
that kind of
I like to say, Mayor, is that being on the subcommittee with Councilman Chamberlain and Councilman Wargo, I'm glad these gentlemen came. I did ask Kathy to ask them to come because we did have questions. I did have a question, Kathy, I couldn't see it on here, and maybe I'm just missing it, was one of the things that I'd asked that we would put in, whoever we're going to be doing an agreement with, is the commission is done after the town meeting. Is that in here somewhere? Am I
I
missing
think
it?
she changed that one, they made it more open, was it number?
The transaction isn't approved until you approve it. So if we get somebody who wants to buy it, if you don't want that use and you turn it down.
Well, the council could approve it, but it has to go to a town meeting.
Yeah, I'd have to look at our listing.
We
We can change that verbiage to include whatever kind of approvals you need.
Sure. And the other question I had, and like I said, I'm glad Kathy brought you here, was I'm trying to understand why there's really no valuation on the fact that our piece has an opportunity to have a light on 7. I would think that would be a valuable component to
You
the
mean
property.
the easement that goes
Correct.
through the center?
I was just trying to get your thoughts on that.
I haven't given any thought to that. I really don't know. That easement goes all the way through and up to the other piece. I basically created the value of what I did per acre of usable land with that in mind, with the idea that you'd have access to 7. So a light, I mean, it's good, but I don't think it changes what my valuation. It wasn't like I came in at 50,000 an acre. I've got your land at probably about 135 to 140 an acre usable acreage. So I think that takes into consideration access.
Mr. Barrett.
I'm going to sound like a newbie because I'm not part of the founding fathers. I've only been in New Milford for 44 years.
A newcomer.
That's what I'm saying. I'm a newbie. That property has sit vacant and vacant year 1, year 10, year 25, year 30, year 35, year 40. I have no problem with somebody that wants to try and list this so we can unload it. If the offer is made to ORNL, it comes back to the council. We don't like it, we don't have to accept it. If it goes to town council, they don't like it, they don't have to accept it. What are we arguing about here? Let's list this property and see what happens. I'm done.
Fair enough. Let me say one thing too. This was bought by the town back in 1998. Originally, one of the original uses was not just to avoid the subdivision, but to put our public works there. So there's an appraisal done a number of years ago. I've asked Robin to go look at it. You know, I'm sure there's an analysis of usable acreage. Nothing really has changed since then. We bought this for $2.4 million, I think. Is that the amount, Scott?
I think it was 2.1.
2.1.
Yeah.
And we actually financed it with bonds. We paid interest on it. So we're just trying to move forward. Walt, I agree with you 100%. Let's get it listed. Let's see what kind of offers we get out there. Oh, there you go. Sure. This was done back in 2003. This only listed as having 19-acre site. This was Hunter and Associates.
Oh, that's missing the corner piece.
Oh, okay.
The house that was
So in any event, I agree. I think this is a home run to list it with the same company that's listing the front piece. It's going to increase the value for both and hopefully move them and give us an opportunity to review at the end of the day. So with that, Mr. Smancy, Mr. Warwick, and then
the point that I want to make is 14 years ago, not quite, we had a viable plan for this property. A hotel, conference center, retail, and residential. I thought it was very complete. I thought it would help the town. It got voted down. I have no idea to this day why it got voted down, because it was a good project. But we haven't done anything with this in the intervening 12 years. Not a thing. But we had a buyer. I mean, we could have developed it. Let's put it, I wish we could just go back and do it again.
Right. I'm not opposed to that. But I just, come to us with it all done, I just, did you just say the price had changed? You said that.
Right. 2.1. We had the 2.2 now to the same 2.1, but.
And that still is based on the usable acreage, of course.
Well, yeah, and let me comment on that. I could see after doing the study, we might adjust it a little if we needed to, but in our world, you can never raise the price of something, you can always lower it, so I'm not concerned about that. That's not a major concern. I mean, if we decided that it really wasn't worth more than $1.8 million, it's not, you can always lower the price once you start marketing a property. Never raise it. So the 2.1 is definitely the number that we feel based on the acreage we were working with. If in fact, after a couple of meetings, we decide to lower it a little bit, that's fine. It's not going to jeopardize the combination of the two pieces right now, those combined numbers are not going to jeopardize the marketing and who we're going to be approaching and the project itself.
So the whole thing is 3 point something.
Yes.
I would just
1.175 for the other piece.
Oh, no, the 2003 appraisal noted that this property is capable of supporting a 174-unit condominium development that was approved. So we're arguing about, 1 or 2 acres at the end of the day. When we're talking about a very large property that's being marketed with another property that has frontage on Route 7, I think we're getting lost in the weeds here. So, Mr. Szymanski and Mr. Bass.
Yeah, I don't disagree that we want to potentially sell this property. I think the question is, are they the right people to market the property? But before we get to that point, Frank, you brought up the point of, we went all the way to a town meeting for those uses. Well, the public spoke, and they spoke against it. They voted it down. So my question to the council is, before we even list the property, are we going to consider certain uses that we don't think the public would be in favor of? I mean, because we're going to go down this whole road, right? Negotiations. We're going to go down, coming to a price that they agree to. These guys are excited. They think they have a commission. And it comes to the council, and then it goes to the town meeting, and the same thing happens again. Are we going to learn from our mistake?
No, there's no way around it.
Is that how?
What do you mean there's no way around it? We could have a community survey. This is what, for instance, are we okay with housing on the property? Affordable housing? Is that okay? Are we okay with big box?
It's not zoned for that.
It's B2, 830G. You could do affordable housing,
Oh,
30% affordable.
830G,
Couldn't
you're
limit the number
absolutely
of
correct,
units.
yeah.
Do we want to limit it to not include big box retail?
Listen, guys, we're getting too far. Mr. Barrett.
I ask the question again. Are we going to sit here on our hands and do nothing about this?
Sure.
No, I'm asking a question, Walter. Do you want big box retail on the property?
It sounds like you want to sit on our hands, and we're not. And that's the problem with the community here. We don't move forward. We might as well graze the cows and horses on the commons again. Yes, we want to be rural, we want to be rustic, but we also have to move forward. You complain about revenue, we don't have revenue. Well, let's move forward.
So, Walter, you would vote in favor of big box retail if it was a fair price?
No. I am voting in favor of listing this. That's
correct, but if we came back,
that's all we're doing.
And it was a
That's
fair
all
price.
I'm doing. I'm voting in favor of listing.
Mr. Szymanski, there's a million what ifs. We're going to have to deal with them at every
no,
stage
because
of the process.
you're suggesting on Church Street we have an RFP so we can focus on what uses are done with the property.
So
Here we're saying we could do big box retail. I guess one more.
Do you have a big box retailer that's interested in going here? Would you like to present that to the council?
Absolutely not, but that could be done with the property the way we're listing it.
Absolutely not. If you have somebody that's interested in this property, you should disclose that. That would be a conflict of interest.
I just said absolutely not.
Well, you're talking about suggestions. You represent a lot of developers in the community, right?
No one is looking at that property because of the site constraints. Okay. Now,
so if nobody's going to look at it, we're not going to get any bids, then it's a moot point.
So that's why we're talking about this, to try to make it more marketable. That's where I'm headed with this.
Can I interject?
Please do, sir. I'm sorry that you...
No, I used to be on planning and zoning in my town, so I'm very used to a lot of this. Look, when we take a listing, I've been doing this for 35 years. When we take a listing, we do a lot of what you're talking about. We sit down. Frank, myself, and Phil have over 100 years experience. We're going to sit down and brainstorm based on the regulations, based on conversations that I've had with Kathy, and we're going to be talking to the mayor about what you'd like to see here, and I already have a pretty good idea. We're going to decide where we're going to focus our marketing. We're not just putting a sign up. We're not just putting it up on the internet. We're going to developers and organizations that we feel we want to focus on. That's how we make these things happen. I'm not going to put up a sign and expect to get phone calls up on Fiegler Road and yeah. I mean, I've been up there. Nobody riding on that road is going to buy the property. So that's who we are, and that's why we're very successful. you know, there's uses that you haven't even thought of that we might be bringing to you. When I list a commercial industrial property, 9 times out of 10, in the end, I'm surprised at who my buyer was. It's so often somebody that I never even thought of. Phil and I actually recently, 2 years ago, we represented PP&G. They have a marine paint plant in Watertown, Connecticut. 60,000 square foot building designed for flow. Very odd building because multi-levels, and they used gravity to create their paints. We got the listing because we presented to PP&G a whole concept of all the flow, chemical, and whatever in the country that we were approaching. Guess who we sold the building to? Marijuana grower. He's the largest one in the state of Connecticut. He paid $2.1 million. He put $7.5 million into the building. The town of Watertown is made out like a bandit. It's a pharmaceutical facility. It's a 60,000 square foot pharmaceutical company. I mean, in my wildest dreams, I wouldn't have guessed it. So this property, believe me, we're excited about representing it. We're finally going to really have something to show with the 2 properties combined. And I think we're going to end up bringing something to the town that will be quite interesting.
Thank you, sir.
And I don't know what it is.
I think we're rehashing the same stuff. I'm ready to call the vote unless there's anything new that you have to add.
Market question. Would it be helpful that the 9 acres that's usable right now, you can barely drive through the property? Would it be useful if a forestry mower or some kind of tree clearing was done, so when you take someone through the property, you can actually see the usable portion?
Well, very good point. I've been up there, and I see this as an access point, but I think it would be very good to improve it to the point where we could show it, yes.
And then the last thing is, there's an issue up on that property and the front property. It's where our homeless population currently stays. And I just want a commitment from the council that we're going to actively work towards resolving the situation. There's 8 people, is my understanding, and talking with them today up there. Some of them are on the town's property, some are on the front property, and I think this is an issue that needs to be rectified. I mean, right now, this is their home.
That's a big issue. My understanding is most of it's on the Aquarium's property.
There's 4 guys on the
When I've been out there also. I actually know somebody that's been living out there.
Yeah.
And so when I went out, my understanding is that it's on Aquarium's property. It's not healthy or safe, but it's been the status quo. We'll address any kind of social needs. We do routinely have homeless coalition go out there and some groups from Danbury that do administer to them. So we'd certainly work with anybody to find appropriate housing. Regardless of this. I mean,
well, that's what I meant.
Yeah.
I was surprised to see it.
Yeah, I think most of it's on Aquarium now, so it limits what we can do.
There's 4
Yes, Mr. Bass.
Thank you, Mayor. Just 2 quick questions to Town Attorney. Are you comfortable with us, whether it be tonight or another point in time, signing an agreement, basically having right now no thoughts as to what the use is or restrictions on use?
I would say that there are other approaches like a request for proposal, which would give you more control. But I also agree that any potential buyer you would have a chance to review, but there would be a lot of detail that would have to get worked out in the contract of sale. I haven't myself reviewed this listing agreement. I would want an opportunity within 15 minutes to read it, but I think it looks like standard commercial terms to me.
And I put it in the contract, subject to the ultimate approval by, there should be a clause in there that would be subject to not only, town council approval, planning, town meeting, whatever it is.
Yeah, I mean, your attorney can take care of that wording. Sure. There's no question that the marketing we're going to do is going to be within the regulations B1, B2 that we have.
And the question I have for you is, obviously you're going to spend your own marketing dollars on this project.
Big time.
And you feel comfortable signing an agreement right now, open-ended, that you could bring in a potential client into this property, both sides, and for whatever reason, the council or the public at large deem it not appropriate for that property.
That can happen on any deal.
Well, what I'm saying is,
we live with that
open-ended
every
like
day.
that, it could affect the sales price. That's all I'm
No,
asking.
we live with that all the time.
Okay.
A property has to meet with zoning regulations or it's not gonna happen. In every town, every deal. I can see that you're very, very sensitive to what will end up here. As an example, I know, just briefly, you talked about it'd be great to have a meeting place, a hotel, a banquet facility. That's very nice, but it may not happen. But if it was to happen, everybody would be clapping. I got that. Somewhere in between there, who knows what we're gonna present.
Sure.
Well, my concern is same as Councilman Wargo. There was a lot of time, a lot of effort spent on developing that property. At the end of the day, it didn't go through. So I just think some of us are trying to just be cautious and trying to get all the things worked out in the beginning so we don't have that problem for you.
Well, that would be our loss. I mean, we're gonna put a lot of energy into this. We are here because we would like to represent the town and that piece of property. Okay. If we're standing here a year from now and we haven't brought one proposal to you,
sure,
then, I guess you won't renew with us.
Okay, let's call the vote. Yep.
I'd like to call for a vote.
Yep, let's call the vote. So, that being said, all in favor?
Aye.
No.
Opposed?
Opposed.
Any abstentions?
I have one question, because on the.
We already called the vote.
Okay.
And what Attorney Tower is going to review it, and we're going to include that language as well.
But we didn't talk about the William Revis property.
No, we didn't get to that yet.
Okay.
This is only for ORNL.
Well, just because that was involved in
It's part of the
Sure.
motion.
This motion is only for, signing the agreement with ORNL.
Okay, can you read it again?
Let's bifurcate it then, let's make it so that it's ORNL. This is the motion to sign the listing agreement with ORNL Commercial, subject to the commission language and, attorney review. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Mr. Szymanski, abstain.
Thank you very much.
Motion carries. Thank you very much, gentlemen. I appreciate it.
Stephanie, just so you know, I abstain.
Very good.
So now we have
So now there'll be a motion
1A
for William
or
Ravis.
something.
Right.
All right.
Okay, so let's bifurcate it. We'll entertain a motion to appoint William Ravis for the residential property at 82 Perry Drive.
So moved.
Okay.
Yeah, can we go through
Okay.
82 Perry Drive?
Any, Kathy can give a little background on that, or let me start with the subcommittee. So what's the subcommittee's recommendation regarding to this?
I did reach out to three residential realtors. One of them didn't, he called me, he said, well, I'll work on something. We never got any market analysis. And the other one never even got back to me. So we did reach out to three of the bigger ones. And the person from William Ravis did get back to us. On Perry Drive, there are a few different lots for sale. This one is the largest one. It's got good soils. It is definitely a buildable lot. And she figured that between 40 and 60, if we say 50, it's probably going to go pretty quickly, hopefully. So, but there are a few other ones for sale, but this is a nice one.
Mayor, question. This was a tax foreclosure in 2001, and we collected any back tax that was owed on this, or was there any back tax?
There is outstanding back tax. I don't know the exact history of it now.
The town's owned it for that many years.
I thought we went to a third-party tax collector that.
We've started to do that, but back in the early 90s, they didn't.
Yeah, I just thought this was part of that time. Okay, so will this cover what we've lost in all these years?
The town's owned it since then.
Yeah, I know, but nobody's, okay, I see.
Right.
What you mean.
So
They took it as a
probably
foreclosure,
won't, but
so
it's,
there must have been something owed back in the day.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
It's just been sitting there, so.
So, any further discussion on that? All in favor of listing it with William Ravis?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. And then the last property is, I'll entertain a motion to issue an RFP for 25 Church Street.
So moved.
Okay, and how about, is that the recommendation of the subcommittee as well?
Yeah,
It is.
Okay.
Yeah, we went inside, looked inside, we walked the property.
Mr. Wargo, why don't you chime in?
Yeah, I like the idea that it's request for proposal because it's an integral piece. So I think we should have a say on the utilization of that piece. Because it abuts Carl's property, Carl's still here, it abuts the library property, it abuts Booth Chase, and it abuts Lyco. So it covers a lot of pieces. So I would like to see what somebody wants to use it for. They might want to just tear it all down and make a big parking lot, and they could impress me with the size of the parking lot, and that would be good. Or somebody could come in with another proposal to put a 2-level parking garage in and residential apartments or something like that. That would be even a better benefit to the town. But until I get some creative proposals from potential buyers, I don't really have a recommendation other than we should sell it. It really doesn't need to be on our books.
Mr. Chamberlain.
As I understand where we are right now, there is active interest in this property from abutting landowners. As I understand, the right portion...
There may or may not be. I don't know. They don't want us to...
Of course.
Yeah, they've told me not to represent that, but they're not.
All right, we'll...
So does it make sense just to list it as opposed to put them through the process of an RFP, or?
I think the RFP is probably a good way to go. There are other people that have also reached out, so I think that there are a number of people
We'll keep it simple
that might be
enough
interested. Yeah, and so I'm going to contact all of them with the RFP. Say, go ahead, this is what you do, and
And
I would just, if it's, I don't know whether the RFP needs to reflect that we are entertaining proposals for the whole or part of the parcel.
Sure. Mr. Szymanski.
Did the subcommittee meet with the library committee regarding how this could be re-engineered to provide quite a large amount of parking for
I'm glad you asked that, because in fact, I did inquire of the library committee, and I was assured that specifically the question would have to do with the barn in the upper right-hand corner. That's the old barn. And I was interested to know whether that particular piece of property would interfere with, be involved with, or be in the footprint of any library. And I spoke to people involved, and they assured me that that was not involved in what they're doing.
No. I mean, right now, the grade from Main Street up to the library is pretty severe. So the parking for people who have mobility issues or people who are older is only a couple spots in the rear, of which are several employees. If we reconfigured and tore down 25 Church Street and added a small retaining wall, we could probably easily on the back portion have 12 to 14 additional parking spaces.
Kathy, I'll defer to you. Can
Let me say something.
Can I address what we? I mean, this is not having to do with the sale, but can I address what we had initially envisioned as far as the holdback?
I mean, as far as the
parking.
Well, I talked with the library about knocking down the barns. That's why an RFP is a good idea. You know, we can expand the parking into where those barns are, and so maybe we could include in the RFP that the barns will come down, the library will expand the parking through there. We could cut off that kind of drive-through access, which is very dangerous going through the driveway, and approach it. And that's why the RFP gives us that kind of flexibility. Mr. Wargo. Oh, you didn't have your...
No. I just think the library plans were getting rid of that grade as well.
Indeed, thank you.
Yeah.
So I was going to say, maybe don't realize
And,
that.
and I would like them to do something with this property from a safety standpoint.
Yeah.
Those barns are just asking if they have a fire in one of those barns.
Yeah.
There are buildings where they're 2 feet away. So it's not going to be just the old barns that go. You can have a major fire, and the sooner we get rid of those, the better.
Sure. Fair enough. Mr. Best.
Thank you, Mayor. Kathy, I know the subcommittee, we talked briefly. In the RFP, are we going to still have an easement or no easement?
I think we had said that the town may retain, so it could be
either or.
Yeah, the town might retain the easement.
That's good.
Okay. So, yeah, any further questions? Ready to vote? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. We're getting a little bit late. We do have the appeal. I know we have Mr. Eaton here to talk towards
We had
the...
two
We have a
other,
couple more
we have-
properties.
really
I
quick.
know, I'm talking about, moving things up because Mr. Eaton has to leave with regard to the traffic authority appeal. So, Mr. Eaton, you gotta leave, shortly, right?
Shortly, yes.
Okay, so I'd entertain a motion to
So move.
suspend the rules.
Suspend the rules.
Okay, second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. So we'll move up item 16, the traffic authority appeal. Does anybody want to take a 5-minute break before we get started? We're good to go? All right, so Mr. Eaton, why don't you come on up, explain the backgrounds, and then we'll invite the appellant as well.
Just don't see it on the,
It's the last page.
So good evening. So at our October Traffic Authority meeting, we received a complaint from a local resident, Ms. Fenella Johnson, about a safety issue on Old Grove Street, which used to be a through road, but is since now is a dead end. Her complaint was that the road is not suitable for parking and that a lot of residents were parking on this road. The town of New Milford has an existing ordinance 20.1 which says there's no parking on any town highway. So with that and looking at the fact that the road was only 18 feet wide, the widest point on the road is near the hammerhead. It extends to 23 feet. We agreed with Ms. Johnson that it is a safety issue, and we asked town engineer Dan Stanton to draw up where to put no parking signs, which just basically changes that road from an unenforceable no parking rule to an enforceable parking rule. Under Connecticut general statutes, it requires a sign for no parking to be enforced. We agreed that an 18-foot road, if there was a lane that people were parking in, it could delay emergency vehicles going in. If there was an emergency, it can cause a hazard to residents having to operate around the vehicles, and that it just was not appropriate road for parking. So at our next meeting, the November meeting, we had the town engineer. He returned with a diagram. We asked him to add one additional sign just to make it a little bit more clear, and the town went ahead and erected it. So fast forward to, I believe it was our December or January meeting, a bunch of residents from Old Grove Street showed up to contest our installation of those signs. So some of the arguments were that they had, family members with medical issues, that it was creating an inconvenience for them, that, contractors may need to work on the road and all these other, issues that a small road could deal with. And they asked for us to install affirmative parking signs. We declined to do that for, again, the same reasons why we decided to put up the no parking signs, to allow that road to be enforced. Under the general statutes and under our town ordinances, we're responsible for deciding where, we are allowed parking, on some of the downtown roads, and also where to put up the no parking signs. And we try to look at just problem areas and target them as they come up. One of the things as well is, in our initial conversations with the residents, they had also submitted an email. Included in that email was from a question that was proposed to the state, who had a significant input in the design. And if I quote, I think it was from Anthony Stanzalou from the state of Connecticut. He's one of the engineers on the project. He put, in reference to your question below for the design, it did not call for on-street parking. Old Grove Street had a design width of 18 feet with no shoulders, which certainly accommodates local 2-lane traffic for residents only, and allows for safe movement of emergency vehicles, but allows no space for parking. So we actually asked the residents to come up with some ideas of things that maybe we could do or we could assist them with moving forward. Some of their residents would be, some of their ideas were to close one of the roads, the crossroad, which just allows another form of access to Old Grove Street, allow parking on there. In reviewing it, it really would not have allowed for a lot of increase in parking. One of the other ideas was for the T to extend past the T and allow parking, but that would require us to get a right-of-way permit from the state. It's their actual property there, because that's where Route 67 used to run. So we saw no feasible solution for us that wouldn't cost money that the town does not currently have budgeted. We also advise the residents that they're free to draw up any permit requests for a right-of-way permit. They're free to do any work on their own property to improve their property so that they can park over. And again, it's the New Milford Traffic Authority. It's our position that we're only going to designate parking on roads that are appropriately engineered for parking. We're not going to go around, I understand and I empathize with the concerns that the residents have with their personal issues. However, at the end of the day, the parking can create a hazard. And under the town of New Milford, our existing no parking, when we see a safety issue like that, we have to make sure that we're allowing the police department to enforce the existing rules.
Fair enough. I invite the appellant to come up and address the appeal.
I had a technical question.
Um,
The pavement is 18 feet wide.
From curb to curb, and that's at its narrowest, and then it's 23 feet from curb to curb at its widest. If you had any other questions, Dan also is.
But is there any town property other than the paved parcel? In other words, they own 3 feet.
There is not, to the best of my understanding, is the road is 18 feet wide because that's the widest that they could accommodate at the time.
As soon as the road stopped, the private property begins.
Generally, there's
Okay.
not a standard
Okay.
50-foot right of way like you would expect in a subdivision or
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Hi, good evening. Brad Towson on behalf of the appellants, Ray and Michelle Towson of 6 Old Grove Street. If I may, I have some documents that I'll be referring to during the course of my remarks. If I may distribute those to Mr. Mayor and members of the council. By way of background, this matter comes to the council based upon the denial of the Towson's application to the New Milford Traffic Authority to permit some level of on-street parking on Old Grove Street. And that application was filed with the town council in December of 2016, following the Traffic Authority's installation of no parking signs on Old Grove Street. That installation occurred as a result of the request of one resident on Old Grove Street, Ms. Fanila Johnson of 17 Old Grove Street. Ms. Johnson's application in October of 2016 to the Traffic Authority to prohibit parking on Old Grove Street came after many years of habitual harassment by Ms. Johnson of the residents of Old Grove Street, including the appellants, and of the New Milford Police Department members who respond to Ms. Johnson's calls concerning parking and other issues on Old Grove Street. Those habitual harassments are replete within the records of the town of New Milford, both in the Police Department and the Department of Public Works. And a small sampling of those records are contained in the packets that I just handed out to each of you, beginning with the first green tab. Now, in regard to the realignment project that occurred with Grove Street and Route 67 and Route 202, that affected Old Grove Street because it did a couple of things. One thing it did was a good thing. It closed through traffic. So traffic does not flow from Route 67 down to Grove Street along Old Grove Street. However, on the negative side, it did two other things. It created the installation of curbs that prevent the access of property that had customarily for over 30 years been utilized for parking by the appellants as well as other neighbors of Old Grove Street. As well, it altered the slope of the driveway of the Towsons, the appellants. And so the slope is now downward in this regard, and that's an important safety measure in terms of the appellant, Michelle Towson. While the harassment of Ms. Johnson of both her neighbors and the police and other town officials certainly deprives the neighbors of their ability to quietly enjoy their properties, because she'll call when cars are parked on the road as well as when cars are parked in their own driveways. While it deprives them of their ability to quietly enjoy their properties, that's not really what this appeal is about. This appeal is rather about the effect that harassment has had on the town of New Milford and its actions through the Traffic Authority and the New Milford Police Department. And I think those effects have not adequately been considered by the Traffic Authority, and thus this appeal. More specifically, with regard to the appellant, Mrs. Michelle Towson, creating a no parking designation on Old Grove Street has basically had the effect of denying her access to the public facility that is the roadway. Meaning, when she has a caregiver, she is disabled. She has Parkinson's disease, and she is wheelchair bound. When you have no parking, any caregiver coming, any member of her family coming, has to park behind other vehicles. And when you have one car parked behind another, there is no access and room in that area to have a wheelchair traverse from the roadway to her front door, or from the front door to the roadway. And that is a very significant issue. And that can be seen in the yellow tab that's in your packets. I'm sorry the picture's a little dark, it's photocopied, but you get the hint that there's a stone wall, and between the cars that are parked back to back, there is no room for a wheelchair to traverse that area. Moreover, in terms of discharging a person from a vehicle while they're on the roadway, transferring them to a wheelchair, and then getting them back into the house, the only place to do that is on a flat surface. The slope of their driveway is such like this, so that it is not safe to transfer a person in that sort of condition. And therefore, you have to make that transfer on a flat surface, which is the roadway itself. So when you're discharging a person, namely Mrs. Towson, the appellant, from a car, getting her into a wheelchair, and then bringing her to the front door of her home, that's done on the roadway. Well, what is the result in that case? In that instance, Mrs. Johnson calls the police. And she has called the police, and the New Milford police have responded in those instances. And while the New Milford police do seem ashamed of the fact that they are responding to a call, given those circumstances of having family members try and transfer a disabled person to her home, at the same time it is subjecting that individual and is subjecting their family to the indignity of having the police called on them while they're simply trying to get the family member to their home. And so that is a huge issue. Under the Americans with Disabilities Act, reasonable access to the public facility has got to be granted to Mrs. Towson. It is a public facility, and there's probably no greater public facility than the roadways of a town. And it is a public facility, and the municipality is required to comply with the ADA under Tier 2 of the ADA. In this instance, a reasonable accommodation for Mrs. Towson that would not be an undue burden from an administrative perspective or from the perspective of enabling other people to traverse the road would be to create one singular handicap accessible space that would allow for parking on a daily basis during daytime hours from approximately, say, 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. With the utilization of a handicap hang tag like this to enable the person to get in and out of their cars and to be able to make that traverse that is necessary without the indignity of having the New Milford Police Department called. I would also mention that when the New Milford Police Department is called, it is not because Mrs. Johnson is trying to traverse the road herself. She is doing it from the comfort of her home, whether it's the front porch or from the window. It is not a necessity. She's not doing it because she's trying to get through the road and she can't actually get through the road. Moreover, this accommodation is reasonable because of the fact that it allows others to still use the road. It's not overnight. And the fact of the matter is, it does not block the sight view of someone who is coming back down Old Grove Street, because keep in mind, traffic does not flow from 67 down to Grove Street. Moreover, there's only one other residence on Old Grove Street beyond the Towson's property, okay? So there's basically little to no traffic on that street at this point in time. This is a reasonable accommodation that's also consistent with Officer April from the New Milford Police Department. That is precisely what he recommended in May of 2016 when Ms. Johnson called the police on the Towsons for parking in their own driveway. That can be seen in the second green tab of your packet there. And so what he recommended was to park directly against the curb in front of the Towson's property, and that's what they proceeded to do from May of 2016 through December 2016. Guess what? Without incident. No one complained that they couldn't get past the car. There were no traffic accidents. There were no incidents whatsoever. And I would submit that as a public safety officer, Officer April was in as equal a position as the traffic authority to determine whether or not that was a public safety concern to allow that parking. So that is our first request. In regard to the other residents of the town of, other residents of Old Grove Street, what seems to be a reasonable solution for them would be to have the town assist in the raising of some of the curbs on that street that were installed as part of the realignment. Those curbs can be seen in the last tab of that packet that I handed out. The reason for that is because as the chairman of the traffic authority indicated in his remarks, we as residents came up with a number of potential solutions to the problem of parking. And given cost and cost effectiveness and immediacy, the raising of some of those curbs would be probably the most feasible solution for the other residents of Old Grove Street to allow for off-street parking. And while there may be a cost to the town of New Milford for doing that, the fact of the matter is that part of that cost is offset by the depletion of use of resources by Ms. Johnson and having the cops report to Old Grove Street for parking violations. And it's not insignificant. If you look at the number of times that she calls and the fact that at each call there have to be at least 2 police officers to report because you need 1 witness to rebuff Ms. Johnson's claim of civil rights violations that she makes almost every single time that the police arrive. In fact, just 2 weeks ago on Easter weekend, 3 police officers came when the Lions, who are residents and they co-joined in the application of the thousands, when they had a birthday party for their young son and there were cars parked on the street. And Ms. Johnson was not trying to get up the street, but she called from her home, and 3 police cars occurred and appeared before the Lions' home. And that's not insignificant. Moreover, from a public safety concern, the utilization of the police for that purpose puts other residents of this town at risk. When you have 3 police officers tied up at something else, and there could be something much more significant going on in the town than a parking violation. So we would submit that the ADA compels, and it's consistent with the ADA, to create 1 singular handicap accessible parking space on a daily basis with the use of the hang tag from approximately 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. for Mrs. Towson and for the other residents that the town assist in the removal of some of the curbs to enable parking. Thank you.
Yeah, some questions here.
Is this the driveway of your client?
It is. It's basically a parking pad. It's not really a driveway.
Is that a garage?
Yes, that is a garage.
And then there's 2 cars, so there's room for 1 in and 2 out?
There's already 1 in there.
I can't really see. So is the street behind? They're in their driveway?
Yes, I believe there's another photo which shows the rear end of the vehicles. It's a little darker.
Yeah, I couldn't really tell.
Okay. And unfortunately, even having them back to back in that manner, what happens is for your average car length, it results in about 4 or 5 inches of overhang onto the road. And when that occurs, Ms. Johnson calls the police again for those circumstances.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Warfield.
Yeah, that picture shows 2 cars, and one I assume is the care worker that you were referring to.
One of those vehicles is actually my vehicle.
Oh.
Yeah.
So
I'm her son.
Okay, so if there was only 1 car in that parking lot, assuming that your mom or dad, they don't drive, why would you?
Well, she resides with her husband, Mr. Ray Towson, the other appellant, and they have 2 vehicles in the driveway.
So really, you're creating this hardship, not?
No, the fact of the matter is that we have numerous caregivers that come each and every single day.
So
one of the caregivers who is here currently.
So you have more than 1?
We have a living caregiver and we have another caregiver. She has Parkinson's and dementia, so there are multiple. There are visiting nurses that come that have to attend to Mrs. Towson. So no, it's not created. The hardship is not created by the appellants themselves.
So I'm not sure exactly what you're asking. Are you saying that we should provide the handicap spot or they allow you to establish the handicap spot on your property?
We are asking that the traffic commission be directed to establish a handicap spot. Yes.
On your property?
Traffic authority.
On the road.
On the road. On the road, against.
On the road.
On the right of
along
way?
the curb.
On the,
Okay.
on the road, in the
I'm
road.
not
In
a lawyer,
essence,
so
in the road,
I don't know
right?
whether you
Yes.
can do that.
Well, that's what he's asking.
Ms. Lundgren?
I just have a question. So, is the car then left out there all day? Like between, the car would be left out there from 7 a.m. to 10 p.m.?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. This is a thing that is generally used for a few hours
Just for
a
picking
day.
up and drop off?
This is a thing that is used for a few hours a day, whether it's for a visit or for a caregiver to tend to the person for several hours at a time, but it's not something that is for a long duration. It's just I'm trying to cover the hours. By the suggestion, I'm trying to cover the hours that someone potentially could be there.
So if the curbs were removed, would this solve the problem?
It would assist with part of the problem because there's a parcel of property that the Towsons parked on. They have maintained it for over 30 years, it would assist because customarily during that 30-year period, prior to the realignment, prior to the curbs being installed, not only the Towsons, but neighbors across the street, the Millers who formerly lived where the Lions lived, they utilized that property for overflow parking. They happen to have a longer driveway than the Towsons do. The Towsons have the smallest driveway. It's really just a parking pad, if you will. But it would assist.
So, well, it almost sounds like if you took the curbs out, you wouldn't need this zone for handicap drop on the. Like, is that possible? If the curbs were gone, then you wouldn't have to create a special zone.
Do you think that would stop Mrs. Johnson from calling?
Honestly, the reason why I indicated that this appeal does not concern the harassment by Mrs. Johnson is because, with all due respect to everyone in this room, I don't believe any of us has the technical expertise to allay her harassment.
So the question is one or the other. So either remove the curb and then you'll park on the grass, or get the handicap on the road. So
Yes, I would request both. The reason why being that the removal for the curb could assist the other neighbors on the street too. Yes, if that was there, it could help. Anyone could use it, but technically,
so for your mother specifically, the issue with having the handicap on the road is that she can't come down the driveway because you can't stop it on the hill, and she can't get to the space.
Right.
So I'm assuming in this garage is a flat surface, right?
Mm-hmm.
So wouldn't she be able to enter into a car using that flat garage area?
No, you can't enter. No, there's no entry from the house into the garage.
Okay, but I mean, if you came around from the front, you would be able to pull her into the garage and get her into a car because that's a flat area.
There's not enough space in that garage to get a wheelchair and have someone come through. It's an older home that was built in the 1940s. There's not adequate space for the nature of the wheelchair that you're having.
So then my other issue is the fact that things are there's not enough space. So if the parking was on the road, how would you then get her down the driveway? If one of the other issues is that there's not enough space
It would
to get
afford us the ability to have a car park for that discharge so that we would be able to get her out on a flat surface safely without having the police come and basically make inquiry of it.
So you really just want it for a pickup drop off?
It's in part for that, yeah. Yes.
I mean, the issue that I would have for the caregiver is that you can't have it handicap accessible because they wouldn't be handicap accessible.
Right, right.
So they
But for
couldn't
that
park
purpose,
in that
yes,
spot.
yes. If the curb was removed, then perhaps the caregiver could park in that area.
Mr. Bass.
Thank you, Mayor. The handicap on and off loading, let's just say, of the individual. The person that we're speaking at with Parkinson's, is it late stage Parkinson's?
It is late stage. She has a form of dementia that accompanies it, yes.
So she's got to get out of the car.
I'm sorry?
She's got to get out of the car.
Well, yes, someone has to help her get out of the car, yes.
And you're not envisioning that when the car parks, you're escorting the poor woman who has Parkinson's into her own home, and then that car then would move.
It would eventually move, but
And what would
believe it
even
or not, during the
be
course,
more helpful is if we took off the new concrete curbing we have, so then that person then could go park where they must
that would
have
be
parked
helpful. Yes.
prior.
Yes, that would be helpful. Yes, unfortunately, during that unloading and loading, Ms. Johnson sees fit to call the police.
Dan, how hard would it be to take them out?
I'm not sure
How hard would it be?
I think the scope creates additional issues of where the car is ultimately going and the use of the space. The right of way is not a sufficient space for a car to park off the lane.
I would disagree. We used it for 30 years for that purpose.
Okay, Mr. Szymanski. Thank you.
So, what's the approximate slope of that road where you want the handicap parking space? Do you have an idea?
From 67 down to Grove
No,
Street.
right in front of your house, your parents' house.
It's fairly flat right in front.
Less
It's
than
far, it's
2%?
far less than the actual driveway.
Less than 2%, or?
I wouldn't be able to garner an estimate of it, but it's
I guess my
fairly
concern
flat.
is if you want an ADA space, right? A van accessible space is 18 feet wide. That would close the road. Per the
Only one
code,
person
right?
can speak, ma'am.
We want the right to
We're not requesting that the road be closed in any regard.
Well, I'm just trying to understand because you're asking us per the act, right, to provide accommodations.
Yes.
Well, a van accessible space with crosshatching is 18 feet wide.
Well, she does not utilize a van. We utilize our own personal vehicles.
I think a car is a foot less. So the parking space that's in front of the garage, that doesn't allow access into the house?
There's no access, there's no direct access. I believe the question was whether or not there's direct access from the house into the garage. You can't get the person from the garage into the house. There's
No, the
direct
space
access.
in front of the garage.
Where the car is parked.
The space in front of the garage.
Not when there's one car parked behind another car. So
Would
if
it
you
be
have-
all right if we go out there and check this out? Because it's
Absolutely.
really hard to picture.
Absolutely.
Is the traffic authority opposed to the curb? You're not opposed to the curbing, just
We're
that.
not opposed to the curbing.
Okay.
One of the things that they would have to do with the curbing is, from my understanding from the engineering department, is they would have to make sure that where they're pulling off on the other side of the grass, if they're not gonna, drive over the grass, compress the grass and create water flow issues on the roadway. So that's why, that's why there is a right-of-way permit. That's why when work is on the right-of-way, they go through and they double check that there's reinforcement on the other side of the driveway that, driving a car over the curb isn't going to create an issue for the road by pressing, pressing the ground and allowing the road to move. And one other thing I'd like to note real quick is that we cannot, by law, create a handicap space with time restrictions. Handicap spaces are free from all time restrictions. A 3-hour parking space that's designated as handicap is not subject to those rules. A handicap space, and again, it would be a public handicap space. So this one day, someone from Townsend Road or a visitor could park in that spot, and then they would still be running into the same issue, which is one of the reasons why we saw this as a kind of a snowballing issue where you make one exception here and then you have to make an exception elsewhere, and you have a bunch of other issues that are coming up after that.
Let me just say, I'm going to suggest that we reserve judgment on this. There are some other unanswered questions. I think it would help to, if anybody wants to go take a look and see physically what this site looks like, get the input from Public Works, and we've heard from the Traffic Authority. Traffic Authority's jurisdiction is very limited. I mean, they put up a sign and they refuse to take down the sign. We're getting into reworking the road, and I think it takes a little bit more input for that. So that's all I would say. Yep.
Wait, I would just like to make a
sure.
comment before you.
One more comment, sure.
But I think we have to come up with a resolution to this. I mean, this family lives there. They've lived there for a long time. They obviously have a problem. I totally understand what it's like to have elderly parents that you have to need assistance getting in and out of a car. It's very complicated, and they're obviously not moving, and I think we have to come to some kind of a resolution. I understand the traffic authority's rules and regulations. We need more information on what if there's any state regulations about taking the curbs down. So we're not prepared to make a decision tonight, obviously. We need legal counsel and and we need to talk about this, because we need to come up with a solution for you.
Fair enough. Mr. Bass.
One question there, while we're going through, I agree with Councilwoman Milford. While we're going through this process, I mean, if they have to unload.
Well, let's be clear. I mean, there's no parking. It's not a no loading sign. I'm very technical because I used to live in the city, so I was an expert at parking. So there's nothing that stops you from loading, from the street. It's the parking, and parking is when you take your key out and you leave it there for an extended amount of time. It's not even running in for something and running back out, so that your neighbor could kind of call the police.
And we can engage.
And we can talk to the police about that as well.
Yeah, we need to.
There's discretion to kind of address that.
If I
Sure.
may, Mr. Mayor, from a procedural standpoint, as someone who was the child of someone who has the exact condition the applicant does, I think the most sympathetic thing that this body can do is table the motion at this time, because clearly we can't resolve the problem tonight.
Sure.
So therefore, I would ask the priority motion of tabling at this time, so that the matter can be given further consideration as to the options that may be open to us.
Sure. Is motion to table?
May I ask a question? I guess if you.
Here's a motion on the floor. If there's a second, then we can kind of.
I'm sorry, I thought I heard second. Go ahead.
Did somebody second it?
Second.
Okay, second. So.
There does seem to be a component here that involves the police department, obviously, they've been there many times. And to me, I get the loading part that you're talking about, but that seems to be of no concern to the complainant, right? She'll call regardless?
She will call regardless.
That's for the police to explain.
But it does
the
cause
issues.
them some duress for when it happens,
And
right?
also
So
causes
maybe we
the
could
officer
I'll talk to the chief.
get a few people involved and the curve.
We'll have a conversation and explain what loading means, what parking means, and what we're kind of working towards to resolve this issue.
Good.
So that everybody's kind of happy and not using, the technical rules as a bludgeon against somebody at the end of the day.
Right.
So I think that's fair.
There's no motion, so you just table and discuss the.
Well, there's a motion, so let's just table it then.
May I inquire, will that mean that it recurs on the May meeting?
Yeah, we'll review it and bring it back up at the May meeting, hopefully with a resolution in consideration with the other departments to come up with something.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Very much.
Thank you.
Dan, could you get us just some information about the water issue with parking on the lawn?
Correct, there's a right-of-way permit process that
Yeah.
utilized your permission trees.
Okay. Going back to item 10A2.
On the
Yep.
table, isn't it?
Yeah, we do.
I don't think we had to
No,
vote on it, it was
it's
just
not.
tabled.
Oh,
Yeah.
I thought we voted on it.
Go ahead, Frank.
All right, motion to approve the surplus committee recommendation to accept offers to purchase 28 East View Drive and 2 Elm Lane.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. So, Kathy, you want to just give a little
These are,
background?
Two properties that the town acquired back again in the early 90s through foreclosure. The 28 Eastview Drive, if you look at it, it's a lot there's no road access to it. It's from a subdivision in the 1950s. It abuts the Garden Homes mobile home park. And I reached out to Richard Friedman from the mobile home park, and he offered what the assessor has it valued at, $17,100. And our committee decided that was a very fair offer for that property. We have a written offer. And the other one is 2 Elm Lane. It's in the private Birch Groves community. It abuts other Birch Groves property that wraps around it. It's pretty much wet in there. There's nothing. It's a 2-acre zone. You can't do anything with it. So they're offering $500 for that.
Fair enough. Any further questions, comments, discussions? Okay, not seeing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
So those have to go to a town meeting.
Right.
So it's not some point.
So we'll set a date, John. Do we have to set a date for a town meeting now?
I don't think we do, we'll just check that.
We could just schedule it.
The town council does call a special town meeting. I'm not sure you need to do it tonight. Special town meetings shall be called by the town council for consideration of the following actions, including all real estate purchases, sales, and transfers. That's 503C. So if you want to call it tonight, You can. I don't think you were forced to, but it might be an appropriate use of your time.
It sounds like we want to move things forward. Our next town council meeting is May 8th. Is that enough to call the meeting, John? I mean, we just have to publish it then, right?
Let's see now. I thought it was, if it's similar to the special town meeting for the budget, it has to be warned, and it has to be 7 days off the warrant, isn't that right?
7, but I'm on.
I think we have to warn it, so we may want to put the second meeting in there.
All right, we could do it May 22nd.
And make it 6:45?
Yes, 6:45. So I entertain a motion to schedule a town meeting for the sale of these two properties, as noted, for 6:45 on May 22nd.
So moved.
Yeah, at the E. Paul Martin room.
Mr. Mayor?
So moved. We got a second.
Yep.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Procedural matter, since we're approaching 9 o'clock, move that we extend the meeting an additional half hour.
Sure. Let's do an hour. That way we don't have to keep coming back to it.
Sure.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay.
That also has to be referred to the planning commission, so we'll take care of that and get that change time.
Very good. Thank you, Kathy. Let's see, tax delinquent properties.
Okay.
Item B.
Motion to approve the recommendation of the town planner to take title to the tax delinquent properties located at Skyview Drive, subdivision, open space, Bonneview Lane, subdivision, open space, and Kent Road, landlocked parcel.
Second.
Okay. Kathy?
I've been working with the tax collector, and we looked at some of the properties that have just been hanging out there for a long time on the tax attorney's website for sale to the public. And we actually had someone came along and made very low offers for the Skyview Drive and the landlocked parcel. We just figured that it would cause more problems to sell these properties to this party for $2,000 than the town really should have them. The Skyview Drive property, I explained in there that it was supposed to have been deeded in undivided shares to all the property owners in the subdivision. When the lots were sold off, it wasn't done properly. So it is the open space for the subdivision. It has stormwater detention facilities on it, and it's wetlands. We've inspected it. There's no concerns. There's like no oil tanks or old cars or anything like that on it. So I would recommend that the town acquire that one. It has to go back to the tax auction. They're going to be having another tax auction soon, so they would put this one on there. With that, if someone makes an acceptable bid of the amount owed plus all the back taxes, penalties, everything else, then they're obligated to accept that offer. But I highly doubt that will happen. And then the owner actually, the property owner has 6 months to redeem. If they don't, then the town can then purchase it or just foreclose on it at that time. Acquire it. The next one.
The next one.
The Bonneview one, sort of the same thing happened. It was never transferred over to the town properly. There is a subsurface fire tank on there. Talking to the fire marshal about how the town needs to address, the fire marshal didn't even know this fire tank was there. So that's a problem too, the fire department who don't know that where these things are. So we have to look into that more. But that's pretty much the same situation, that the town should take title to that. And then the last one is this Kent Road parcel, this landlocked parcel. The people who had been foreclosed on, I think they had got it by quitclaim deed in probably 1970. Nobody could do anything with it. The Blue Trail runs just right along the edge of the property. So I guess you could hike up to it, but that's the only way you could get to it. It's right in the middle of the wood. There's no number. It's behind the Straits Rock open space. It's 17.59 acres. So I thought maybe the town should take title to it. Maybe the town will then think maybe we would do to Riantonac if they wanted it. But it could just create more problems than anything if we sell it for $2,000 to some random person. I contacted the abutting property owners. No one has come forward to say they wanted to make any offer for it. So it seems like it just would create problems if we just sell it to someone who has no access to it.
Sure. Mr. Szymanski?
How would it create problems if they had access from the neighboring property owner for a single family to develop it as a house and put it on the tax record similar to the Ferry Drive house?
The topography is really bad up there.
Okay. So it's not, doesn't have the ability to support a driveway?
No,
at
no.
all
It would be
from-
totally cost prohibitive if you really looked at it.
And it's been offered for sale in these tax auctions and never sold.
For a number of years, yeah.
But
It's
we're
been
saying
sitting
that
out
someone
there.
made an offer on it so that then they would start paying taxes on it, presumably, right?
They also made an offer on the Skyview one, so I think that they're probably thought was, let me offer to an abutting property owner, which we've already done.
The likelihood is that, somebody's gonna buy and just go into tax delinquency again.
Again,
You know,
if the town does get someone
There's
coming
no
forward who
value.
wants to buy it, sure, it's.
We are putting an acceptable bid price above what a lot would be worth.
Right, that's.
So you're basically precluding anyone from bidding on it.
It's already gone out to tax sale. So if we want to put a lower price on it and say if somebody wants to offer $40,000 for it, but it doesn't seem like there's any interest in it. That was my only thought.
Okay. Any further questions?
Nope.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
And the
Item
last-
C.
So it sounds like motion to approve the support for the application to the Connecticut Greenways Council to establish the Milford River Trail Greenway.
Kathy, just briefly.
The Greenway, some of it would overlap with the Housatonic Riverbelt Greenway, but it would connect the Housatonic Riverbelt Greenway and the Stowe River Greenway, so it would feel it would help us in going for grant funding and different types of recognition if we had this designation. So the Bike and Trail Committee wanted us to pursue this.
You have specific areas that.
We do. HVA is actually working on, this is the map, sort of, but HVA is working on a better map for me that we're going to submit with the application. We should have that, should have it yesterday.
Okay. All in favor?
Just a quick question. So if our trail ends up not following that because of, Malone McBroom's report, do we then go back to them or how's it work? Or it's more general in nature?
It's more general. It's
Okay.
sort of like the Housatonic Riverbelt Greenway just sort of
That's
goes
fine.
along the Housatonic River. So this would just, yeah.
So that vote got interrupted. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. All right, Kathy, you might as well stick around. We got item 11, the steep applications. Just very briefly. So entertain a motion for A.
Motion to authorize Mayor David R. Gronbach to apply for and sign all necessary documents in connection with the Small Town Assistance Program steep grant. The grant request is in the amount of $500,000 and if secured, will be used and expended towards the Old Boardman Bridge multi-use trail rehabilitation.
Second. Okay. Kathy, most of us know about the Old Boardman Bridge. It's been closed down for quite a number of years. It is at the base of Sago Meadows and the parking area over there. So this is a grant that we're applying for basically to start to rehab the footbridge part of it and get people walking across it again and start doing that work. Fair enough, Mr. Wargo? Frank, you had a question?
No, resting my head on my.
Darren. Mr. Best?
Thank you, Mayor. Kathy, I guess this would go for both steep grant applications.
Mm-hmm.
There are other applications that we could have made for this grant. Sidewalks in town, road construction. Why did we choose the grant
Yeah,
for these
actually, I wasn't
projects?
quite prepared to talk about this one tonight, but let's see. I think we just brainstorm about which places in town it would be appropriate for based on the scope of what it talked about. It talked about things that dealt with again, it's capital projects.
It's capital projects. It's not really roads. It's not it's not really applicable for that. And in terms of something that is shovel ready, we've got a survey for this. We've got community support.
We talked about historic
It's historical
projects.
property. It's recreation. It's part of the river trail. So it checks off a lot of these boxes that make it a much more stronger application. Sure, Mr. Chamberlain.
I drive past that property every day. I'll drive past it tonight. Obviously, it's a very visible thing. It's you know, next to the downtown bridge, probably one of the most visually recognizable points. I think that it's needed. As I mentioned to some of you, I was driving by it this weekend and I saw a group of young people on the bridge. From what I know of the condition of that bridge, it's a public nuisance in its present condition, and being next to a recreational facility like that, it seems incredibly logical to me that you would want to improve it, make it attractive, incorporate it in this wonderful riverfront recreational facility, and make it a benefit to the public instead of a safety hazard.
Mr. Wargo.
Oh,
Scott,
I went first. It seems to me when we did the Lovers Leap Bridge, and that was a long time ago, we had a discussion on the Bourbon Bridge. And at that time, it was established that that bridge, I think, was built in Berlin, Connecticut. And it was older than Lovers Leap.
It's one of the only three.
So there's only a couple in the state. So anything we can do to preserve that, and I know, Pete, you're right, there are a lot of other projects, but you're not going to replace this bridge. It's just something that we're almost custodians of history. And if we can make it safe and we could make it appealing to people who are coming through to Milford, I think it's a win-win.
Yes, I echo that, and for years, when there's been several times it's come up to do something to remedy its deterioration, and I believe that our town engineer even had some cost for it at one time. But as Scott pointed out, I go by there every day, and for years, there's more and more now, because people are taking the trail, there are people trying to get out there, and you could fall through it if you've looked at it. And if someone gets hurt, I just think if there's some way we can, this 500,000, I can't remember, it was a while ago we did it, but will it complete putting up a walkway?
We're going to have to prioritize with this 500,000. In other words, so the full remediation was over $2 million, but that's painting and everything else. I think the $500,000 will get us the walkway and be able to start opening it up again. Keep people from falling through and using it, because they're also walking along, the other bridge where there's no sidewalk, and it is dangerous. The historic character of this is really important to the state. And so you got to look at these things. There's a safety issue, there's a recreational issue, and a historical issue. The state's priorities right now are very limited. And so you talk about, everybody's got a construction project that's not getting funded. But this is still something that we hope that there's money available for.
So
it's so unique.
If we were to be awarded, we would use it just for that.
Right, yeah. 500 is the max, so we've asked for the max.
Okay.
Sure, Mr. Szymanski.
So did we discuss with them the deadline to make sure we can still submit?
We submitted it, and it's always subject to town council approval. So we talked to our town attorney. Let me just say, we've already submitted it. And our town attorney has always advised us that if there is a deadline and, the town council, meeting comes afterwards, you're authorized to submit it. And if there is no town council approval, you can always withdraw it. But it's always better to submit it and get the council approval afterwards.
I guess my concern is this came out in the beginning of March, so we've had 2 town council meetings since then that we would have had the opportunity to openly debate, are these projects worthy of the grant application. For instance, it says, please note that for fiscal year 2017, priority will be given to applications for projects that benefit 2 or more eligible municipalities. They then put in red how there's way too many applications and it outpaces the amount of funding available. So to put ourselves in the best position, you would think we'd want to follow the recommendations of the grant. I think it's not true that this can't be used for roads. In 2008, New Milford used it for the construction of road and sidewalk repairs on Church Street, Whittlesey Avenue, and Elm Street. In 2010, it was used... Road repairs or sidewalk? Road repairs. Redid the roads. 2010, it was used for the reconstruction of West Main Street. So it can be used for roads.
Just to address that, the priorities now are not roads. We talked to Larry Wagner, our expert on this, and the state's emphasis has shifted away from those kinds of projects. Even for the senior center, we were very lucky to get the steep grant for that expansion when we did, because they're just not giving that money away anymore.
So if we considered the Still Meadows piece that we were just talking about, right, because we want to stimulate economic development, bring tax revenue into the town, and we wanted to consider the construction of a road and infrastructure to be able to get into the site, to give a potential developer the opportunity to really maximize the use of that site, that wouldn't be a priority. I mean, it says economic development projects such as constructing or rehabilitating commercial, industrial, mixed-use structures, constructing, reconstructing, and repairing roads. When I look at the last 10 years, some other towns use this grant creatively like that. So I guess my concern is our priorities.
Fair enough. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Mr. Bass, Mr. Szymanski, opposed. Okay, very good. Thank you. Item B.
Motion to authorize Mayor David R. Gronbach to apply for and sign all necessary documents in connection with the Small Town Assistance Program STEEP grant. The grant request is in the amount of $500,000, and if secured, will be used and expended to improve the John Pettibone Community Center property.
Second? Kathy, just a little backgrounds.
This one with the parking lot, the driveways, part of the zoning application, that was one of the concerns. We want to make sure that the driveways are, I'm trying to remember exactly what we put in this one.
Trying to upgrade it,
yeah,
you know? Yeah.
Upgrade it. I know that our town engineer had some concerns with the condition of the pavement, so we thought it would be a useful project, and it was able to hit a lot of the points in the STEEP grant, because we're going to have our social services over there, the youth agency, there's recreation, so it seemed like it would check off a lot of the boxes and make it
It's a community shelter. It's
right.
Yeah, there's daycare that would go on there also.
So based on the
summer camp.
calculations received from the town engineer, as far as per square yard replacement of the parking lot and the driveways, that seemed to be a good fit.
Fair enough. Ms. Francis.
Is B, the STEEP grant on B, competing with the STEEP grant on A?
You're allowed to apply for more than one.
So, but we're not in competition with ourselves?
No.
No, you can.
Well, I mean, there's
you
only
can get,
so much money.
Listen.
Right.
You could apply for one and put all your eggs in that one basket. You could apply for two and kind of increase your chances.
When you apply, though, you're asking for, you're stating what you're going to use it for.
Yeah.
So then you have to use it.
Yeah, it's a separate. Yeah, this is what it would be used.
Okay.
Two separate grants.
Fair enough. Mr. Szymanski.
So this is strictly for pavement.
Reconstruction of the parking area.
So this doesn't, what about sidewalks that zoning's probably going to require, or lighting?
It was not for the sidewalks.
So here's my concern, right? We started this discussion regarding Pettibone about 9 or 10 months ago. I think it was June of last year. And as a council, it was represented to us. It was going to be less than $100,000. That we needed to do a roof repair, we needed to patch a boiler and replace the tank in the boiler. We're now here, some months later. We've expended $225,000 through the waste management fund. We're now being told we haven't occupied the building. We're now being told that we need another $500,000 for pavement. That doesn't take into account the zoning approval process, which, based on the lighting plan I saw, is going to require new lighting, which zoning commission likely is going to require sidewalks because they're requiring that of everyone along Route 7. So I'm extremely disappointed because when we initially started this process, I asked flat out, it's in the minutes, is there going to be a plan? Is there going to be a budget? Are we going to look at what the true honest costs of the project are? And I was assured time and time again, the multiple times it got brought up at the town council, that it was going to be a de minimis amount of money. And here we are, $225,000 in, another $500,000 request just for pavement, and we still don't have a plan for how to pay for the sidewalks, potential landscaping, lighting, not to mention the building itself. We were told by Green Cap at the last meeting, their project doesn't include the roof. So, as a councilman, I feel I've been misled, and I can't support this, because when we look at our wants versus our needs, I don't think this project's a need.
You would object to $500,000 from the state, not from the town, but from the state to pay for additional improvements and upgrades at the property. That's your objection, is that the state would actually pay for this, not the town, not the taxpayer, but the state.
No, my objection, Mayor.
No, you just said that. I want to be clear. You
No,
said
that's not
that's
what I
not part of the budget. You know,
That's-
it's but you're objecting to me asking for $500,000 from the state to make additional upgrades, and you're objecting to that.
Let me answer. My concern is, and what I'm objecting to, is the process.
Yeah.
We were told today that the grant's already been applied for, so the town council had no input of potentially modifying that. To me,
Oppose
that's my opinion. unacceptable. That's not working together.
Yeah, sure.
Secondly, as it relates to what I feel are priorities for projects in this town, no, I do not feel a project, which we were just told just for the paving is $500,000. I think we need to reassess that whole project just based on this statement that was just made. I think we should apply for something like the economic development project of Still Meadows or Century Brass. And how could we do infrastructure improvements within that to make it marketable, to make it sellable, to put it on the tax rolls? Those are, when you look at the awards over the last 10 years, those are the exact kind of projects that the STEEP's looking for.
Sure.
These creative, outside-the-box economic development projects that other towns don't think of.
Yeah.
And when we think of that over other towns, all of a sudden people start talking about the town saying, hey, how did they come up with that? Those guys think outside the box.
Kathy, do you have something to
What
add?
would probably be a good idea is if we start thinking about that for the next round of STEEP grants. We didn't have much time to put this together. It was after the last
Isn't
town
this every
council
year?
meeting and before. I suppose, I don't
It's
know if they do have it every year.
April.
Okay, so we'll make sure that we plan ahead and we do a better job planning ahead with it.
I think we did a great job. So we'll let the council set the priorities. So all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? 2 opposed. Mr. Bass and Mr. Szymanski. Fair enough. Thank you, Kathy.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item 12. I entertain a motion.
Motion to approve the transfer of funds from consultants, number 1049010853000, $16,000. Materials and supplies, winter maintenance, 1043010056003, $9,000. And general equipment, 1049010857400, $5,000, or other accounts as deemed appropriate by the Director of Finance to be transferred into the tree removal and trimming, 1043010054901.
Okay. Second. Any discussion? Mr. Bass?
Thank you, Mayor. Once we transfer these funds in, how much have we spent this year on tree removal?
Well, it was a $100,000 budget, so 100,000 will have been spent. This will be, we're adding 30 to it to get us to the end of the year.
End of the year being the municipal fiscal year in
Right.
July. And are there work orders already for this income, the money that we're going to encumber?
There's purchase orders for the money that was still available. Dan, I don't know if you know the status of current work orders.
Right, we have approximately, several $1,000s available in open purchase orders. The request for this money is to get us to the end of the fiscal year based on the estimated number of trees working with the tree warden and what
Dan,
permitted.
Would you know the big, I don't know the tree
You're not an
types.
arborist.
Right.
But as I'm driving down Grove Street,
Okay.
there's that big, huge one.
I do not know what type of tree that is, so I know that's been marked, but I can get you that information of the type of tree.
That would be one we would be looking at.
That would be
taking
one,
down, right?
yes, that has been tagged by the tree warden and identified to be taken down.
Thank you.
Fair enough. Yeah, Mr. Szymanski.
So this work is only for work that Carlos is recommending, basically, that are trees that are a hazard or whatever it is statutorily?
Correct, based on customer service investigations and trees that Bill identified.
And our tree contract expired in November, so who's taking down the trees?
There was an extension of the purchasing authority.
And what's that time period for?
I would have to check the exact language on that.
So it didn't go back out to bid, it was just extended?
Correct.
Ms. Francis.
And this money's being transferred from other accounts, it's not like it's being added into.
Right, it's,
Yeah.
it's within Public Works. Met with them,
Okay.
kind of spread it around so that we could get it to where we need to get it. All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Dan. We've got item 13. How about we take just a 5-minute break before we invite Green Cap up to do their presentation. All right, looks like Mr. Szymanski has left the building. All right, we'll kind of move on then to item 13, Green Cap Advisors. We'll entertain a motion and then invite each gentleman up.
Okay, motion to approve the proposal by Green Cap Advisors LLC to perform Phase 1 analysis of heating, cooling, and power upgrades at JPCC by utilizing power agreements, grants, rebates, and clean energy financing to fund improvements. The $14,800 for Phase 1 funding for this project is to come from a transfer from the planning personnel 1041530051000 to planning consultants 1041530051000 and is expected to be reimbursed as a credit upon completion of the project.
Okay, fair enough. Gentlemen, welcome back. Thank you. Do you have anything to add? I know you did your presentation previously.
I think the only thing we added to the committee over the weekend was we tried to address some of yours and Tom's questions, and to kind of go through the process a little bit more. So.
Can I just get your names again? I'm sorry. Get your names again?
It's John Lee, and this is Doug Esposito.
Thank you.
And I wasn't sure if you all had any questions, about, or answering your questions.
I don't have any further questions. Does anybody else have any questions? I know that Kathy did reach out, to try to price out what it would cost, other companies to do this similar type of work, and it was more than the $14,800 that's being proposed here, correct, Kathy? Significantly more.
There's specific scope of services to 3 other companies that had reached out to me previously.
Yeah.
And the one came back, Celtic Energy, was $19,000 or more. The other ones wanted to go inspect the building before they would even give any sort of quote.
Okay. Mr. Bass, you have a question?
Just real quick, Kathy, when you were looking at the other potential people that were doing it for free, were they local companies, or were there any bigger ones like Lockheed Martin or anybody like that?
I didn't find any that would do their scope of work for
They're the same.
I
So
I
apples
took
to
their
apples.
specific scope and put that out there.
Okay.
And it was more than what they wanted.
Thank you.
Any further questions, comments?
I just want to make a
Mr.
comment.
Morgan? Oh, sorry.
I was just going to make a comment. You're looking at me, sorry, Frank. This is a good comment. Is that I thank you for the answers, and I did do some more looking up your sparring. And I think that was wrong.
Well, no, they really are an excellent company, and they've worked with a lot of ESCOs, and they're.
No, I appreciate it. Thank you very much for answering.
I've talked to a couple of people on this that are far more informed than I am, and they said some of the big companies that do this, they guarantee the return. They guarantee that the savings will be such that you won't have to pay money. And I don't remember what your guarantee was, or if there was one.
So basically, I mean, ours is like a kind of we're walking with you during the process. So as we're going through the process, our next step would be the engineer would do a full energy assessment. We would submit it to the utility, to DEEP, to Green Bank, and we'd find out what are our rebates and incentives from the gas company, and only at that time you can really determine, what the savings are.
So whatever the savings are, let's say it's $100,000. Are you guaranteeing the $100,000?
Well, actually, we are not. Who is going to be NRGI Insurance, who's owned by Hanover.
So what I'm saying is that
which
the town is covered.
Right.
Yeah. So do you tell us it's going to be wonderful, and it turns out to be okay? Who covers the difference?
So the liability ultimately would be Hanover Re instead of Doug and John. So and the same thing with the contractors; they would be bonded. So
and that would come in phase 2. So there's no commitment to phase 2 on the part of the town until we get through phase 1, and then you have a chance to dig in a little deeper on that and understand that better. But that's the short answer, John.
That's all I have.
Thank you, Frank. Mr. Bass.
Thank you, Mayor. Just one quick question. Pardon my building inexperience, I guess, when it comes to commercial. In your proposal considerations, number 1, the free energy assessment. Item 2, where you specify the building is in need of major improvements, such as insulation, ceiling, new roof, upgraded windows, upgraded lighting. If these upgrades aren't done when you guys are doing this, Is there still the ability to save?
Yes, well, there is the ability to save. I mean, we did have an insulation contractor go out and give us estimates.
Okay.
And as, you know, contrary with what Paul said, we are going to look at the roof, but we are treating it as more of a long-term, you know, like a capital expenditure item, because typically, if you have a $500 or $1 million roof, whatever the cost of that roof is, it's going to be a much longer payback period than putting in a super efficient HVAC system.
All right, great, thank you. Thank you, man.
All right. So, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Thank you.
I'll have you all the way at the end. I appreciate it. Thank you, though. All right, item 14. Yes, Mr. Bass.
Mayor, could I ask to suspend the rules and add something to the agenda?
What do you got?
To have an Arbor Day, we do a.
Oh, yeah, that's right. You were saying that. Yeah, I think that's great. We've got actually a tree planting budget in Public Works, so I don't think.
Arbor Day, tree planting 1 year is our
And Arbor Day.
support of,
Right. Okay.
We don't have that already? That's surprising. I mean, it's a national holiday, so I mean.
Yeah, this would be a New Milford town.
Arbor
Yeah,
Day.
plant a tree for Arbor Day.
I second the amendment to discuss this.
Oh, okay.
Let's vote on it.
Do you?
Okay.
Okay.
So sure. Was there a second for the Arbor Day?
5 minutes ago, I said it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Quiet.
Okay, motion carries to plant a tree on Arbor Day.
I need one on the
Yeah.
front lawn, Pete.
Yeah.
Motion to suspend the rules,
And we did that.
Arbor Day.
and then, granted, yes, everybody voted in favor of it.
You missed
Just
that
pick, there was like a bunch of seconds.
Yes, everybody
Just
said
pick whoever
yes.
you want,
Yeah.
Stephanie.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter.
Can I get a motion to plant?
Motion to
Second.
plant,
Katie seconded that?
Yeah.
And then Walter thirded it.
and Frank pushed it.
Whatever.
Go right ahead.
Okay, so
As
we're
long
all
as
set.
Pete brought this subject up, thank you, Pete, because I think it's a good idea. I've noticed over the years that we've taken trees down on the green, and I don't know if there's a policy that we replace 1 for 1.
I think
But
Park
this
and
would be a
Rec
good
deals
place
with
to
that.
start.
They did.
Park and Rec.
The last one that came out,
Mhm.
I happened to see them putting another one in.
Right.
Not in this same spot, but.
But I think that's
I don't
important.
know.
We've
Yeah,
really
they're
lost a
doing
lot of our
Yeah,
trees.
they've been doing
Yeah.
that, Frank.
Yeah, I don't know if it's written, but it does.
But
Park and Rec does
I
it.
just want to make sure that we are doing it, it's not falling through the cracks. And the other thing is there a committee? I mean, there
For
are,
what?
the garden club. I mean, but
Yes.
is there a committee that we could assign this to, and they could do private fundraising? And we could make this a big deal. And that you can raise X amount of dollars, and the town would provide the labor to plant them, and the whole town could get involved.
Are you
I think it's a
nominating
win.
yourself?
No,
That's what happens when you say.
Would you give me some time?
Oh,
I
you wouldn't want
probably
me to
could
do it
come
'cause
up
they'd
with
all
some
die.
people who would want to do that.
I think that's great. I mean, our assistant tree warden is a landscape kind of architect. It should be fantastic.
Myself and another master gardener, I think would be very interested.
Awesome.
Kathy
Yeah,
Setterling.
yeah. I have no doubt that the garden club, and some other people could
Yeah, no, I think that's a good idea, Frank.
we'll find some good locations.
We don't have to do any, once a year we meet, that's good.
All right, fair enough. So let's get some trees planted.
Okay.
Okay, getting back to where we were. 14.
All right, motion to set the date for the annual town meeting and the budget referendum. Do you want me to read this whole thing, or just?
How about you just, set the
annual
dates
town-
for
okay.
May 9th and...
Annual town meeting to be held Tuesday, May 9th, 2017, at 7 p.m. in the E. Paul Martin Room, 10 Main Street, pursuant to Section 502 of the Charter of the Town of New Milford. And, and to warn for the budget referendum and to conduct same on Tuesday, May 16th, 2017, in accordance with Section 707 of the New Milford Charter.
Any seconds?
Second.
Guys, gotta go around the table. Any further discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Walter.
Motion carries? No, not yet, we got one more.
One more. Okay.
Small cities.
Motion to authorize Mayor David R. Gronbach to sign the use of the program income resolution for the 2017 Small Cities Grant application filed on behalf of Glen Eyre.
Second.
We, this is just the, there's all these other kinds of resolutions that go along with it. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Motion to adjourn, Mr. Mayor.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you, everybody.